All right. Welcome. Hello to the Personal Brand Summit 2023 edition. Really excited to welcome all of you to this iconic launch for 2023. Hopefully, you're going to make this a game changer year as we introduce to you top influencers. We're going to share with you their strategies, their secrets, everything that they've done to build, scale, and monetize their personal brand from scratch. So let's get started. Welcome officially to the Personal Brand Summit. Now, I'm here to introduce to you, of course, a whole lineup, a slew of different influencers who are going to come today and share those comments. My name is Christine and Tim. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm the founder of the global startup ecosystem. I've built tech ecosystems around the world, but I'm also a creator of the Personal Brand Summit and Accelerator program. So really excited to introduce to you some of the top influencers who are doing it every day, building their personal brand, inspiring people around the world with their work, their value proposition, but more importantly, show you why in this digital age it's so imperative for you to be able to craft a digital brand that really sends an impact, really shows influence and credibility and authenticity, especially as we go more and more digital in this global economy. So with that said, today you're going to hear from cream of the crop influencers, people that I've admired over the years, whether they're head of departments at corporate institutions, whether they're influencers in the tech and business ecosystem, whether they're in government roles, transforming innovation within the government sector or in academia, right? They come from different corporate backgrounds. And so you're going to hear from them day one how they built their brand, how they launched their brand, how they manage it today, so that way you can walk away with some fundamentals to really kick your career off exponentially here from 2023 and beyond. So let me give you a walkthrough of today's agenda. Today's agenda is going to be action packed, as you can imagine. Right? So today we're going to kick off obviously with our first keynote speaker, which will be Ty Heath from LinkedIn Market Engagement B2B Institute. And she's going to give a workshop session and also walk you through her journey of building her personal brand. Follow that by our workshop session where I'm going to come back on for about a half hour and do an intensive dive workshop session with you titled The Digital Shift. Personal brand fundamentals, where I'm going to show you what's happening in the world today and how you can leverage. Pretty much, they used to say like chaos is a ladder. There's a way to leverage what's happening today around the world to influence your decisions and your career trajectory. We're going to have a brief break for a couple minutes, and then we're going to be followed by an amazing panel. This panel is going to be titled Personal Branding in the Digital World, How to Navigate Your Career and Grow Your Influence. And we're going to have three iconic guests moderated by a very top-notch influencer for this session. Then we're going to have a quick break. It's going to be followed by an amazing keynote by Einstein and Tim, chairman of the Global Startup Ecosystem, followed by dynamic speaker Ryan Rowland, author of Dish the Act. Then we're going to be closing with three iconic keynotes. Dr. Anino from Avidus Consulting, Dr. Lisa Coleman, Chief Diversity Officer at NYU, and Sandra Murch from Autodesk. So really, really amazing lineup for you today. 3 hours of crazy content, but 3 hours that will definitely change your life. So agenda today, you don't want to miss any of these sessions. So huge round of virtual applause to our amazing speakers and our lineup for today's session. And of course, we're going to cross different topics today. We're going to talk about how to create digital products that sell, how to become a paid global speaker, how to build a website in 24 hours, how to monetize your personal brand online. So many different topics are going to be shared today. If you have been trying to build and monetize your personal brand, this is by far not only the leading personal brand content series that we're launching here this year, but the only personal brand summit online that walks with you from start to finish, leveraging the strategic directives of powerful influencers on the internet today onto how to build your personal brand. So today is not a joke. You're going to want to be in for today. So with that said, congrats again for joining us for the Personal Brand Summit. Really excited to have all of you here today. And of course, again, It's going to be action packed. So please have your paper and pen ready, because this is not going to be another time for you to engage with content like this before. And so please definitely shout out on the chat feed where you're coming in from, who you're calling in. Why did you decide to even sign up for this personal brand summit? And without further ado, let's kick off the countdown, because we're going to welcome our first speaker to the lineup. Our first speaker will be Ty Heath. So in the next 30 seconds, we're going to welcome her to the main stage. Congratulations, everyone, and welcome again to the 2023 edition of the Personal Brand Summit. See you on the other side.
Hello, everyone. Christine, how are you?
Nice to see you. You know, for a personal brand summit, I had to bring you on because you have been rocking it. So I'm so excited to welcome Ty Heath. Ty, tell them how you do this every single day. Over to you.
Thank you so much. This is a topic I'm deeply passionate about, and I think it is so necessary to cultivate a brand. It opens up so many things. It's out front. Wherever you're going, it's there before you, opening up opportunities for you. And I work for LinkedIn, y'all. I'm the director of market engagement at LinkedIn's B2B Institute think tank. I'm co-founder of an event focused on women of color and active allies called Transform Her. And I can't say enough about the opportunities that have come from investing in building my brand over the years as a B2B marketer, as someone who works at the intersection of marketing and equity as well. So I have a presentation, and let me share that. Let me get that up on the screen here. And hopefully y'all can see that soon here. Perfect. Thank you so much, team. Okay, this is how to build your brand on LinkedIn. I am excited to go first. The reason why is because LinkedIn is so fundamental to your personal brand mission. There's a lot of platforms you can build your brand on, and you absolutely should invest in a number of different platforms. But I think if you are a business owner, entrepreneur, corporate employee, and all of those things, LinkedIn is where people are online to make deals, to connect, to build, to collaborate. People are in there with a professional mindset. I call it the money platform, frankly. So it is a place where you want to invest. I also call it the conversation before the conversation, because before people meet you, more often than not, they search your name, and one of the first results is your LinkedIn profile if you have one. And so that's an opportunity for you to tell a story about yourself that gets you more connected and more opportunities. So it's a great place to start your investment. So I had to come in, and I'm super excited that the team had me first in the lineup, because you can apply, I'm sure, a lot of the things that are coming next to that conversation. So let's continue forward here. I talked about connecting to opportunity. I just want to share with you something in the background about LinkedIn that you may not be familiar with. We have what's called the economic graph, which is a digital map of the global economy. Everything in your LinkedIn profile is something that can be pulled into this economic graph. The 900 million plus members, companies, jobs, skills, schools, knowledge. When you think of all of those things and what they power and what's possible because of them, that's another reason why LinkedIn is definitely a premier platform for building. All of these things can help people make better decisions and learn about the environment around them. So it all starts with your profile. Now, for some of you, this may be a recap, but it's also an opportunity to take a second look at your profile now. Even if you've heard me say these things before, it's an opportunity for you to go back and update your profile. It's not meant to be a static resume. It's meant to be a living, breathing, it's alive, y'all. Go in there, and you want to continuously update it as you have wins, as things change, as you get promoted, as you start working for new people, as you start volunteering, you get the idea. So consider this conversation a refresher and also a reminder to update your profile if you haven't done so in a long time. The first step is really to have a photo that represents you. If you doesn't have to be fancy photo shoot if you can, amazing. But you can also have a friend take a picture of you and just use a professional picture that represents you. When you have a photo, you're going to see better results, more connection requests, more profile views, and more messages. Also, this is a newer thing. Some of you, it was launched a while ago, but some of you may not be familiar. If people have difficulty pronouncing your name, this is another feature within the LinkedIn profile to help people be able to say your name correctly. And that's very important. So the limit of 10 seconds, and you want to hold the phone 4 inches away from your mouth to do that within your profile. And this is done on your mobile device through the LinkedIn app. So if you don't have the app on your phone, you want to download that too. Adding your industry, that's really important. Honestly, this is how people find you and add you. It gives you 9 times more profile views. And this, if you're looking for a job, it makes you 38 times more likely to be found in recruiter searches. So people are searching by industry. Next is the summary. This is so important. This is who you are and what you stand for. So I recommend framing it, what are you passionate about? What are you committed to? What do you aspire to create? That way your summary is also forward looking. And this is a way where you don't have to list all your career accomplishments. There's an experience section. This is more about the story of who you are. This is what you would say if you stand on a stage and introduce yourself and what you stand for, right? So I am all about catalyzing information that helps people make better decisions, including having this conversation with y'all today on personal branding. So you want to think about what do you want to be known for and have that be a part of your summary. Next is featured content. So you may not know this, but you can bring your profile to life by actually pinning particular posts that you've already shared. So if there's something really compelling that you want people to see immediately, especially if you've got something going on and you know that people are going to be coming to visit your LinkedIn profile, you definitely want to have some things pinned with the idea that people are going to come and see this in your profile. So that's articles, posts, as well as like other things that you may want to just highlight as a part of your brand. Next is work experience. So definitely focus on what you've done most recently. As a rule of thumb, have the most body to that content, but you also want to mention the story of how your career progressed. You don't have to, think of it as like a bullet here and there, like a static resume. Try to frame it so it reads like a professional story. If people were to read the story of your professional life, what would it look like? Why did you work there? What were you out to do? What was the impact you had? What was the change you created? Really have it read like a story. And then, again, detailing your work experience. It's an opportunity to tell that story. Here's your title, your employment type. This is the information you would fill out, whether you're actively working in that role. I know a lot of us wear many hats. Sometimes we're in multiple things at the same time. It just lets people know what you're up to currently. Okay, so that's an example. And then creator mode. So you may not be familiar with creator mode. This is a mode that allows you to grow and engage with your audience through content. So if you are a content creator or someone who is fielding a lot of content, you post pretty often, it's actually a really good way to establish thought leadership and grow your following. The reason why is because creator mode helps you highlight your original content within your profile and build a following around your content on LinkedIn. So think about who you are, what you do, and consider activating creator mode in your profile if that is you. Next is adding your volunteer experience. So again, a lot of us wear many hats. There are causes that we care about deeply. And this is a unique way to round out your professional identity, tell your story, your experience, what you care about. It's another angle, another dimension of who you are. And guess what? If you're out to be hired or if someone's looking to work with you, it does read really well. A lot of hiring managers actually say that they view volunteer experience as equivalent to formal work experience. So it's really an important part of your professional identity that you shouldn't ignore. Next up is adding skills. So skills show what you're great at. And we want you to add at least 5 or more skills to your profile. And when you do that, you're going to get 17 times more visibility. People also search on skills, like think SEO here. So it's another great way to be found in your network. And you choose what gets displayed and also people will endorse you for those skills, giving you additional credibility as well. So keep in mind, adding skills, you want to do both what we call hard skills and soft skills are equally important. LinkedIn releases a skills report, skills that are on the rise and skills that are really key for today. So make sure you also take a look at those as you figure out what you want to index on, because people are searching for particular skills today. Wink, wink, AI is certainly one of those things, machine learning. If that's you, just think about what's going to empower viewership for your profile. Beyond that, recommendations. So this is a powerful way for people to not only get the credibility from you, but to hear from people who've worked with you. If you just finished a project, if you just launched something with somebody else, if you are working with a colleague for a period of time and you have done some great things together, why not ask for a recommendation and reciprocate, give the recommendation back to them? Couple things. Keep in mind what you want to be recommended for. So think from a brand standpoint, what do you want to be known for? Consider having the person writing the recommendation write the recommendation from that angle. Maybe even, have them take a first pass, send it to them, and just kind of bounce it back and forth, especially if you're looking to build something new or if you're looking to take your brand in a different direction as well. So choose people you've worked with closely and who can provide specific examples is a good rule of thumb for this as well. Okay. And then update a few other tips, like update your location, because that's how people find you as well. Education is really important. You put in the work, you got the degrees, you got it. So put it in there. Publications and also your accomplishments as well. If you won an award, industry honor, all of these things really help round out your presence. So that's you specifically, your own profile. But then there are other things you can do on LinkedIn that are so important to building your brand. These things I haven't talked about as much as in the past. So let me bring that up today. One of them is, if you're going to build your brand and be a leader, you want to also follow and get information that's keeping you informed on what's going on. So whether you're following companies, and we'll talk about influencers and other folks in just a moment, this is a way for you to keep tabs on what's happening in the market, stay on top of the news, content companies, and also professionals that matter to you and what you're trying to build on. So, again, any launches, if you're trying to work with a particular company, if you need to pitch to them, if you have a collaboration, absolutely make sure you're following them so you can keep up and be smart about what's going on. And then I mentioned influencers. So this is a great way to keep up with trends, topics, and insights from people you respect and admire on the platform. And so when you follow somebody, you can see their activity across LinkedIn in the feed. And this is just a great way to stay informed on what matters to you. By the way, just to take a quick pause and say, this conversation today is a great opportunity. I'm so impressed by the other speakers and by what Christine and Einstein are up to. If you haven't already followed their work, what's going on in this ecosystem, you absolutely want to follow it. It's just a great way to keep up with what's going on. Also, I encourage you to follow each other, get to know each other, and really build your networks with the people around you. Okay, next is thought leadership. So this is about you and your voice now. So some of you may be more familiar with posting content on the platform, some of you may not. But again, if you're aspiring to be a voice, like the question is, why not you? Share your expertise, start to build, and it's a great place to have your opinion be known. It does require some vulnerability. I think about it as doing a service for the audience that I care about and I want to see win. So that's a great way to frame it. So there are a couple ways. Again, this is maybe some of you are familiar with this. Some of you are more new to this. Very easy when you log into LinkedIn. Get started by sharing a status update from the home page. There's a share button. And there are a couple of things that help your status update stand out. So one, be authentic. People can tell the realness from the fakeness. So, be real. That's what resonates with people. You want to post pretty frequently, right? Sometimes people are like, should I post, as frequently as you can, right? When you do, you create more opportunities for you and your content to be discovered. Some of it's going to be a hit. Some of it's not going to be as much as a hit. Don't worry about that. It will resonate with the people it resonates with. Pro tip, have maybe a friend or somebody you care about maybe read your post before it goes live, see how you can enhance it, make it stronger. But yeah, this is all about starting a conversation. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. So when you post, you want to start the conversation in the chat, keep going in the comments, keep going back and forth, respond to people. The more people you engage with, the more it motivates people to share it and it gets noticed in the feed. Include rich media. Video's hot. It's going to continue to be hot. Photos attract the eye. So definitely those things get more likes. And then think about reciprocity. Again, this is a two-way street. Share other people's content, comment on other people's content, build a strong ecosystem of support, especially around the topic you're passionate about, because that's going to help your brand. Next, article writing. So similar to sharing status updates, you can write articles, and this is a key way for people to get a sense of your credibility. Again, I said LinkedIn is the conversation before the conversation. When people dive into your profile, an article is a great way for them to understand what it is you have an expertise on. They can actually read the full article before they talk to you and be like, this person knows their stuff. So an article is an excellent way. A couple of tips here. One, make sure your headline captures attention. This is thinking like a marketer, using a nice photo to stand out. There's a lot of great websites where you can get stock image or take your own pictures as well. Think about whenever you go to an event or you're out in the world, think about it in the context of like, I'm going to write an article about this later, so I better take some pictures. So being authentic, using your voice, thinking about, well, what are the challenges and opportunities for the audience that you're writing to? Speak to them directly and tailor your content to give back to your community. And that's, again, how your brand builds. You become that go-to person. The length of your article matters a lot as well. You can write a long form post, but, maybe make sure it isn't too long. There's a sweet spot around 600 to 1,000 words is the sweet spot, but it also depends on your audience too. So test it out and see what works best for you. Okay. So moving on to tracking your progress. Many of you may not know this, but you can actually see the results against the different posts that you post. So you definitely want to check and see, am I achieving what I intended to with the post that I shared? So again, you can see things like what company people came from. You can see things like what roles, titles they had. You can see what area or location they came from. And this is all really valuable information because you can ask yourself the question, am I reaching the people that can benefit most from my perspective and expertise? And if you find that the answer is you're not reaching the audience that's going to benefit most from your perspective and expertise, then you can consider tagging particular people into the post. And you should always consider tagging people in your posts. That helps to amplify it and draw the attention. Just don't over tag. You don't want to be spammy to people. Using hashtags is helpful. Maybe you want to use different hashtags. Maybe in the headline, the first line of your post, you want to say the audience that you're speaking to. Say something that draws them in particular. So check your progress regularly. This is a pro tip. Not very many people do this, to see how your content is resonating with your professional community. If you have creator mode on, you're going to get some additional insights as well on this. So that brings us to the close here. I know I covered these things fast and furious, but it really is a foundational step in building your personal brand to make sure that you are investing in your LinkedIn profile, just because it's such a central place for people to understand who you are, what you're up to as well, especially in a professional context. So I want to again invite you to be vulnerable. The best time to start is today, to start to do these things with your LinkedIn profile and to think about what content resonates. Again, what questions do your audience have? What are the insights? What are the obstacles they run into often? What are events or resources that are most helpful to them? Who are the other influencers in the space that are out doing the work to strengthen the ecosystem around the area that you want to build a brand in? And what is the unique lens that you bring that only you can bring to that topic? So with that, thank you so much. My name is Ty Heath, and I am proud to be connected with this community. Do feel free to connect with me. I look forward to watching your journey, and if I can be helpful to you, please do let me know. So let me now stop sharing and turn it back over to the team here.
Now, in order to be able to know how to craft your personal brand, you need to know your level. Where are you today to even know how to get to building a personal brand? So if I were to ask any one of you today, how many of you believe you already have a personal brand? Usually, on average, when I ask this question, I get divided responses where some of you say, yes, I do have a personal brand. And some of you say, no, I actually don't have one. Well, I'm here to give you the actual answer. The answer is all of you have a personal brand, whether you think you do or not.
Hey. That was great, Christina. Everyone does have a personal brand. Oh, Christine, I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you. There you
Hey,
are.
can you hear me okay?
I hear you now. I can hear you now. Yeah.
There you go. I just wanted to say thank you so much for kicking off the session because,
Thank you.
and
Yeah.
you said it best, like, LinkedIn is one of the first things that people look up when it comes to social media branding and profile in terms of the caliber of work. And before you just log off, any fun announcements that you have going on that you want to share with anyone? Because as someone who's a thought leader in this content space, like anything you want to share with the audience before you go?
Absolutely. I'm up to quite a lot of things that I want to keep in touch with everyone on. A new venture that I'm launching called Marimbella. So that's one thing I want to encourage people. You can learn more about that if you connect with me. I'll share more with that with you. Also, I'm going to be live at Inbound next week in Boston. And if we have any marketers or aspiring marketers in the audience, we're going to be talking about how you measure brand effectively. So if you want to learn more about either of those two things, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I look forward to working with you, hearing from you, collaborating with you. And Christine, thank you so much for what you do for all of us, you and your team as well.
Thank you so much, Ty. I had to make sure you give some shout outs because you're always doing cool stuff. So thank you so much, everyone. A virtual round of applause for Ty. 30-second countdown. I'm coming on next. Thank you, Ty.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome back. So, really, really excited about this personal brand summit because, as shared with you before, there's going to be a lot of influencers speaking all day about how they've done it, what they do, and also strategies and tips to help you build and manage your personal brand. So, I'm calling in hot today with a workshop session on the digital shift, pretty much personal branding fundamentals, and why this is so imperative and important for people to build their personal brands, especially with all the changes and happenings around the world. You need to be on point. You need to be ready for what's happening. And I'm going to show with you how you could do that. So without further ado, let's have this conversation. First and foremost, the fact that we've been hosting this personal brand summit live virtually, reaching hundreds and thousands of people around the world, shows you the direction of the world and the state of the economy today, right? Everything is so digital first. People are now digital first. And now you can reach global audiences online, literally within 6 feet of space around you. You have Wi Fi, you have your laptop, you're ready to connect and really spread your message like ever before. With that said, who is this conversation for? Because a lot of people say, like, I'm not ready to build my personal brand. This conversation is not for me. Well, let me see. Let's do a little roll call. If you're an entrepreneur in the room, raise your hand. If you're a small business owner, raise your hand. A digital content creator, a corporate professional, a social media influencer, a blogger, a speaker, an author, a coach, a consultant, whatever your title, you need to be having this conversation right now because the personal brand is crucial. So this is for everyone. Now, how you build your personal brand, that's when it gets really customized. But everyone now in this digital first economy that we live in should be building their personal brand, right? So with that said, what are your top concerns? Because a lot of people, I think we all, fair enough, know that a personal brand is very, very important. But what are your top concerns? What are you currently thinking about and mulling about? Well, raise your hand if you feel like, look, I need to figure this out because I want to get ahead. For some of you, how do you know how to grow your influencers on LinkedIn, grow your influencers and influence on Instagram? Some of you might say, like, look, I got the followers, but how do I convert them into clients? Or many of you, especially with this economic climate, you want to build additional income, right? You want to go digital, reach global audiences. And for some of you, you don't even know where to start, right? So some of you have some real serious concerns right now that you want to address, right? But why does this actually happen to you right now? I know this is not the first time that many of you've heard the terminology of personal branding, but why is this so crucial right now? Well, let's start with this. The economy is going through a downturn, and I'm not sure if many of you are prepared. If this is you right now, and you're feeling the economic pitch with inflation, changes in rates, changes with how we buy and even interact with just finances right now, this is why this matters to you. For some of you, you're aware that this matters to you because being relevant is so important for career growth and you don't want to lose out on opportunities. Right now, if you're not relevant and on top of your stuff, it is career suicide. So this is definitely very important for those of you in the room. And for some of you, why does this matter to you? Because many have said, I want to scale my expertise. How do I expand my reach, earn more money, and transform my lifestyle, right? This is for you as well. So with that said, I just want to give a public service announcement. We're not going back to pre-pandemic. We're not going back to 2019. I know a lot of people have nostalgia about how things were before the pandemic. That's it. The shift has happened. We will never go back to how it was before. And I'm saying it right here and now. You see the headlines. You see what's coming out in the news every single day. The world has shifted. Society has shifted. And I do think that we're going to come back to this time and this era. And people are going to think about, okay, what was the impact of 2020? But even before 2020, there was a shift happening where we were going more online, engaging with people virtually around the world. Now it is here to stay. So what are you doing about it to get ready? Now, I know some of you might feel overwhelmed. You're alone. And there's this conversation, a headline that's spreading right now called the silent depression. Yeah, I'm sure you heard of it. We all know about the global depression. We all know about other recessions that we've experienced economically around the world. But right now, the buzz phrase that's circulating around the internet right now is called the silent depression. People are going through things right now, trying to figure out their career, trying to figure out their life goals, trying to figure out how to stay ahead, but no one is telling the truth. You see people living their best life on social media. Everyone's only showing their highlight reel, but no one's showing the realness of what's happening behind the scene. You are not alone. And part of the solution of you getting ahead and figuring out how to really get yourself to the next level is understanding, like, who are you today? How do you represent yourself both offline and online? And how do you get ahead in this economic climate? Again, you're not alone. We're all figuring this out. And I'll tell you this, there are strategies and ways to do this. Now, let's take a step back. Let's stop thinking about what's going wrong in the world today, and let's think about what's possible in the world, right? Imagine if you are invited to speak at a conference in front of 5,000 women in New York City, and the subject matter is your story. Think on that for a second. Now, imagine if you receive an email from Forbes magazine requesting to interview you to share tips and strategies for the next feature article of the month. How would that feel? Now, imagine if you are getting your day started and you see your account dashboard with 46 notifications from the night before because you have made $11,487 over the past few hours while you were sleeping. I'm here to share with you that it is very much possible to have these realities. And I'm not speaking from theory. I'm not speaking from research. I'm not speaking from someone who told me about this. I'm speaking from experience because me, myself, I've done it before. I've spoken on goals and stages. I still to this day travel the world, engage with different networks. I'm living a life that I've built from scratch by really targeting, knowing how to present my value, present my influence in ways that matter to the communities that matter to me, right? And I have global recognition. I have the receipts to show you. If you Google my name, you'll find that I've been featured in many different media outlets over the past couple of years. And we talk about building and scaling a personal brand. How about monetizing a personal brand? How many of you want to monetize your personal brand? Personally, I've generated real capital over the past decade through my personal brand. And when I think about the journey that I've been speaking on global stages, building my own media empire and building companies from scratch as a serial entrepreneur, I realized my personal brand is more than an outlet for me to showcase what I'm up to and what I'm doing, but it's really reinventing myself every day and showcasing authentically what I'm up to and why I could present that as a value offering to people around me, right? And so, by introduction, my name is Christine and Tim. I'm the founder and CEO of the global startup ecosystem. I'm a wife, I'm a mother of 4 beautiful kids, and I'm a serial entrepreneur who have built tech companies around the world and have been featured in many different media outlets and partnered with dozens of Fortune 500 companies, work with government institutions. And when I tell you, I'm not only passionate about building tech companies from scratch, I'm passionate about personal branding because I know what it's done to my life and the people I care about, and want to impart that wisdom with all of you here today. Now, my journey really started very, very small. So I'll take you back a little bit, right, to 2011 when I graduated from college and I started my career in banking. From 2 years working in the banking sector, loved my job, did really well, got promoted several times within 2 years. But I knew that I had to really break out and really do something completely out of whack. So I quit and moved to Dubai. During my time in Dubai, I launched my first startup. And within 2 years, that startup not only made the Forbes list, right? Got me on the Forbes list, but also was generating capital, generating news outlets. And really and truly, my career in public speaking kicked off around that time when I kicked off that first company. I became a thought leader in that digital social entrepreneurship space way back in 2014. Media mentions started coming along where I was getting featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, Harvard Business Review. I was getting so much opportunities on media outlets around the world. And of course, as people hear about your credibility and your passion, I started to meet the right people. I was networking with celebrities, politicians, billionaires, right? And I started to build this influencer network of influencers around the world through my interactions and the work that I was doing in the tech space. So things was really going well, right? I'm getting the speaking engagements, I'm getting the media features, I'm traveling to all parts of the world. At one point, I was traveling to close to 30 something countries in a year just for speaking engagements alone. But I knew at this point how to build a brand that was global and influential. I did it, right? I thought I had everything right. But the reality is, life happens happily, right? And it's interesting that, fortunately for me, I got to marry the love of my life and I was pregnant with our first child. And we all know, for those of you who are mothers on the call, those of you who have been pregnant, have been done that maternity experience, life changes, right? And the challenge become, how do I turn the challenge of staying home, not being able to travel as much, not being able to engage with speaking engagements as much as I have, and try to nurture this new transition in my life. And what happened was that in this screenshot here, I'm actually pregnant doing this video call on this screenshot, right? Was balancing changing how I provide value to my community around the world. So again, I was doing all the right things, but I wasn't really getting consistent opportunities and consistent results, right? So what I did is I reflected on what I did and tried to adjust, right? So from that stage, I realized when I first kicked off my career and building my personal brand purposely, by the way, I was doing random opportunities, right? I was doing random speaking engagements, getting random press mentions. It wasn't really all coordinated, right? I was doing the work, but for some reason, I wasn't getting to the goal. And I realized it's because I didn't even set goals. How many speaking engagements do I want to do? How do I want to monetize it? What career opportunities do I want? I didn't set the goals in advance. So of course I wasn't hitting any targets, right? So by 2017 to 2019, as I was kicking off my tech career, right, I started to be more targeted with opportunities and speaking engagements, making quotas of what I wanted to do. And I started to experience some profitable conversions, right? And a little bit of consistency. But there was a little bit of confusion in my messaging. Luckily, I know the pandemic was really, for a lot of people, a real big downturn, but for me, it was an opportunity to take a step back, reposition myself, rebrand, retarget. And around that time, I was pregnant with my third child. So throughout this journey, every single year, I had this opportunity to reflect and reset. And there's three lessons that I learned from this experience, right, of reshifting. One, you got to figure out your goals. Why do you even want to build a personal brand? And some people don't even know what is their core motivation for building a personal brand. Is it independence? You want to create wealth. You want to have multiple streams of income. Is it influence? You want to be able to connect to the right people, right? Shape the future, shape how things are done around the world. Maybe you want to make an impact, right? People know that even though I'm this American New Yorker, I'm a big proponent of letting people know that I'm Haitian, right? And I love my home country where I grew up and where my family's from, right? Making an impact in my home country. But whatever your goals are, you need to target them and you need to be focused on achieving those goals. Second, the second lesson I learned is once I figure out my goals, why is it pertinent that I accomplish those goals right now, right? And different people have different reasons for doing that. Some of you, maybe you're in a sector right now, you're transitioning to a new role. Some of you, you have multifacets. Like, for example, I'm a farmer at night, I'm a tech entrepreneur during the day. A lot of people know that I'm a very great at cooking, right? And I will combine all these different attributes of who I am and also dancing, right? And really make it a consistent, holistic personality that comes forward to people that people can understand. Or for those who are serial entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general, trying to separate your personal and your business brand. You built out your business brand very well, but what is your personal brand? You as a standalone, who are you, right? So again, accomplish what are your goals? Why are you trying to build that personal brand? And why is it pertinent for you to do this now, right? And once you figure that out, there's certain steps that you do because again, your personal brand is really the sweet spot between how people view you and how you view yourself, and bridging that gap in the middle and having these pretty much these instigators, right? These call to action items to get you to build your personal brand purposefully from scratch. And then finally, focus on that target. As stated before, you got to know your level, right? Once you figure out your goals, you figure out your reasons for building a personal brand, you start to be more targeted with your activities when it comes to building your personal brand. And what is a personal brand, right? It's really who are you? It's your story, it's your journey, and people learning how to learn and grow from your journey, right? So if you're an entrepreneur in the tech space, share that journey in the tech space so people could be able to replicate your successes and avoid some of your failures, right? That's the value proposition we talk about when it comes to having a strong brand. You've done something in your life that others can learn from. And we live in a world now where institutions used to be the mark of credibility, right? That's why we used to go to universities and colleges to get that institutional credibility. But now that we're in an influencer economy, now influencers are people that people want to learn from and get insights and information to grow and develop not only their careers, but their lifestyle, right? You're probably more probable to pay to book a course and learn from an individual now than an institution, because we now live in an influencer economy where people are setting the trends. So essentially, you need a plan, right? You need a course of action. You need to figure this out, right? And like I said, over the past 10 years, I've learned so much over this course, over this trajectory of building my personal brand, that now when I look at what my priorities are, I realize like, look, I can be very decisive, no to this, yes to this, because you're going to have a million and one opportunities coming your way. But when you're on target, when you are operating on your purpose, you know how to move forward and also balance your wellness, balance your needs, balance your ability to grow and develop and accelerate your goals in a timely manner, right? So, with that said, look, I know it feels chaotic right now, right? The recession is here. People are experiencing financial problems. People are really undergoing mental health issues that's at an all time high. Riots are happening, overthrows are happening. It feels like everything is chaotic and there's no way forward. But again, when these things are happening, that doesn't mean that there's no way for you to gain opportunities during this shift. Here's why you can capitalize on the change that's happening around the world right now. As shared before, this is the dawn of the influencer economy, and we are now in a digital first society. Everyone is going online. As of April 2023, there are 5.1 billion people on the internet in terms of users worldwide. And that amount was only 64% of the population. That number is only growing as more and more people have more access to mobile credibility, right? Another reason why you could capitalize on the change. Trust is now built online. I don't care how influential or important you are offline. People always are going to look you up before they make any decision to work with you in any capacity, right? So, a new survey from the Manifest found that 67% of companies look at job candidates' LinkedIn profiles before they hire them. 65% of them look at their Facebook profiles. And let me speak about the entrepreneurs. Research shows that 48% of shoppers will look online for your company and the founder and the team before they book a purchase, right? So now trust is built online. So where are you on the digital space? If someone Googles you right now, is it the brand that you want to portray? The last reason why you could capitalize on this change, the future will require digital income streams. I'm saying this here today, and I hope you remember this. Your economic future is going to be built and based on your ability to really acquire digital income streams. Did you know that the global e-learning market as of last year is growing to 243 billion, and that's going to grow into the trillions over the next decade. So there are multiple reasons for you to capitalize on this change. So this is the reason why, in addition to introducing you to other influencers who have done such an amazing job of building their personal brand over the past couple of years, I myself, I've been through it. I love teaching about this. You can see my passion when it comes to talking about personal brand and why it's imperative for you. I'm introducing the Personal Brand Accelerator program. Now, I piloted this program this year with a special group of dynamic influencers from around the world. These ladies came from Dubai, London, New York, Ghana, Nigeria, all walks of life, which is a testament to my global career of the people I attracted to the pilot launch of the Personal Brand Accelerator program. I'm happy to say that I'm launching this fully to the public now this year. So you're welcome to sign up to be a part of this Personal Branding Accelerator. Here's the reason why this is going to be a great opportunity for you, especially for those of you who recognize the imperative nature of building your personal brand. The purpose of this accelerator is for me to teach you how to build a personal brand that commands authority. Because, as stated before, being relevant is so instrumental to your career. Not being relevant is career suicide. Second, I want to show you how to make money with your personal brand and attract lifetime opportunities. And finally, I want to explain to you how I could guide you on scaling your personal brand into a digital business that provides consistent income and wealth. Look, I don't need to market the course details. I don't need to tell you about bonuses. I know we live in an era where almost everybody's launching a damn course right now. Everyone's launching a webinar and a workshop and a boot camp and a retreat. I get it. Everyone's doing this. You know me. You've seen what I've done. You've seen what I've built. I have the personal brand and credibility over the past decade to tell you, if I'm going to teach you this stuff, you're going to get the goods, right? And so, with that said, I'm really excited to launch the Personal Brand Accelerator program. If you're interested in working with me over the next month, sign up via my website at christineandtim.com/personal brand course. And I can see you live. You can work with me every single day. Of course, you know me, when I do this content, I record it, upload it. You'll have access to the content for life. You'll be networking with other people that I'm teaching about how to teach their build their personal brand. And of course, you get me. get live access to me, and I'll be able to engage with you. But again, I'm not going to the details. I'm not going crazy on this. You know it. If you want to learn how to build, scale, and monetize your personal brand and just rock out your career in the digital space, you already know me. You can find me everywhere on the internet and ask about me because I know my reputation speaks for itself. I've been there, I've done it before, and really and truly, it's been amazing just building so much over the past couple of years that I've learned so much, and I just want to share that information with you through this program. So hopefully you join me on this course. Hopefully you're enjoying this personal brand summit. And of course, I can't wait to see how many of you really just scale in this digital space. There's so much available to you through the internet right now. I hope you're capitalizing on it. And of course, I hope you're also enjoying it too, right? Wellness is very important. Hopefully, you're being good to yourself. You're really managing yourself really well. And I'm really pleased to engage with you guys over the next couple of weeks through this personal brand summit, over the next couple of hours through the personal brand summit as well. And of course, looking forward to seeing you guys all after this. So thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing all of you. And we'll be introducing the next speaker pretty soon. Have fun, guys. Welcome again.
First thing you need to think about is being an expert. And what do I mean by being an expert? We already see what's happening where today, if you're not informed as to what is going on, the person next to you could have less experience, but if they're more informed, they will get ahead. And that is the knowledge truths. Keep in mind, there's now a digital economy. And so when you're trying to export your business, you're also exporting your story and you're exporting your expertise. Some people forget that sometimes you could teach your knowledge, your background, your story, and monetize that.
So as an expert, the ones who are able to teach that information to their audiences, they get more partnerships, they get more marketing, they get more customers actually. And so I host like a lot of webinars online for free. I do a lot of videos, I do how-to tips. And so that expertise also builds my brand, which indirectly builds my business.
Now, in order to be able to know how to craft your personal brand, you need to know your level. Where are you today to even know how to get to building a personal brand? So if I were to ask any one of you today, how many of you believe you already have a personal brand? Usually, on average, when I ask this question, I get divided responses, where some of you say, yes, I do have a personal brand, and some of you say, no, I actually don't have one. Well, I'm here to give you the actual answer. The answer is, all of you have a personal brand, whether you think you do or not.
But this world, as big as it is, one person can be the tipping scale to really create a domino effect that no one ever seen coming. I would like to remind people, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to judge you and tell you, you're too naive.
Grow up to be yourself. Start my day with what I want it to look like at the end. Before, when I was in that hustle culture mentality, I always said, like, I have 1,000 things to do. It's my checklist, and kind of went through my day just checking things off a list. But instead, I thought of, like, starting my day with, what's one thing that if I did today, I would be happy. And sometimes that might be, doing an important phone call or working on something for the team or a project, or just being lazy. right? But whatever I visualized that to be for the rest of my day, that was my main focus for the day. And it helps me prioritize so I don't get into this to-do list mentality. Grow up to be yourself, period. And so I always say to the younger generation, especially in this day and age where nothing's certain and change is a constant thing, you want to grow up to be the best version of yourself, period. And whatever that means, everything along the journey from when you're young to when you grow up, I wish people told me that, because if I realized it didn't matter if I grew up to become a doctor or a lawyer or entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. If I just knew as a young girl that you just need to be the best version of yourself, everything falls in line. Because as I grown up and I realized I started to embrace my personality, my quirks, my weaknesses, my strengths, everything that makes me unique, whether people love it or not, it's helped me actually to get towards what I really want to do in life. And I think we're all on this journey of self-fulfillment. And I think we all need to find that naturally. And the only way to do that is to be yourself, because you start to pick the roles and pick the opportunities that make you shine. And the only way to do that is knowing that when you want to grow up, remember that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Be yourself. My coworkers will definitely describe me as bold. I'm always like, oh, so this is the standard. Why can't we do this standard, right? Which leads to the second way that my coworkers, I have a kind of like a little nickname, No Excuses, because I work really hard. I really put like 1,000% in a lot of things I do. And so my coworkers kind of like, it's very hard for them to come up with excuses as to why they can't deliver, simply because they know anything that I've asked of them, I've already done it. And I've done it 10 times over. So it's very hard for my coworkers to feel like, oh, it's just someone shouting orders. No, she's done it before and she really expects that of us. I've also been told that I've been very vulnerable. I'm very open. I know people separate work and home life a lot, but I do believe that you're not just your role, that there's a lot of things outside of work that makes you who you are. So me being a mother, and me being a wife, me also being, a dancer and a free spirit, like all that leads into my personality. So they know like I'm quirky, I'm fun, I'm goofy, but I'm also very on top of things, and all that, I expose them to all of that. And so it helps them be more open.
But this world, as big as it is, one person can be the tipping scale to really create a domino effect that no one ever seen coming. I would like to remind people, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to judge you and tell you you're too naive.
It's been an exciting morning. We just heard from Christine, and we continue with our programming now. We'll now transition to our next keynote speaker. We'll be having Ryan Folland coming on. He's an author of Teach the Art, and he's going to speak on the topic, Ascend an Authentic You, owning your client to the brand summit. So without wasting my time, I'd like to welcome Ryan to the Personal Brand Summit stage. Welcome, Ryan. Do we have Ryan on? Ryan is the author of Stage the Act, and he'll be speaking shortly on the topic Ascend to an Authentic You, owning your climb to the brand summits.
Hey, San, I'll come on because I think Ryan's running a
So
little bit
whilst we
behind.
get Ryan ready, we'll now have the okay. Okay.
Sure thing.
So
No, sure thing. So I think Ryan is running a little bit behind. So we could definitely just get like the team ready for the panel that's coming next. But just wanted to answer any questions that people had about the personal brand accelerator program or just the summit in general. I saw a couple comments come online. So team, if you could just like rotate the comments on the screen, that would be great. But essentially, one of the questions that was asked on the call on the chat feeds, like, why the personal brand summits? And this is something that I think for the past couple of years, I think a lot of people have heard us do summits and information around technology, entrepreneurship, how to build a business, how to manage a business, how to scale a business. But we never talk about the individual that's powering these ideas, empowering these startup companies. And so it's something that's been a really big request of our community, and say like, hey, can you walk us through obviously for me directly, like how I built my personal brand, but in general, with the way that the world is heading, how can someone monetize and build their personal brand right now? And I will say that there's three things you got to think about when it comes to this journey of personal branding, right? You got to look at your life and look at your career and look at, okay, what is it that I want to do? I may not have all my ducks in a row right now, but if everything was aligned, what would it look like, right? And what steps, what resources, what networks do I need to tap into to get there, right? And I've found that many individuals who talk about building a personal brand or talk about like trying to learn the art of personal branding, really is like really navigating your career in a way that builds opportunity for you almost like on autopilot, right? And so I found that many individuals struggled with trying to figure out who to tap into and how to ask the right questions, how to demand more of the community. And I think that when you have something that you're good, right? Something that you know how to do very, very well. People tap into that, right? What's something that people repeatedly ask of you, whether it's like, hey, can you, review my resume? Can you help me with introductions to this? Help me with my pitch deck? Or can you help me build a business? Like whatever your network is tapping into you, on a regular basis, there's something there that you could provide at scale to the world, right? And I think a lot of times we focus so much on just how to monetize that skill set or monetize that passion or monetize that capacity. But in the beginning, it's really you figuring out, like, I'm good at this. People ask this a lot of me. And how do I spread that to people on an organic and systemized way? And that's like the base foundation of you trying to create that value in a consistent way and then build a reputation around that, right? I think it goes without saying that for me personally, I do have a reputation for serial entrepreneurship. I do have a reputation for traveling around the world. I do have a reputation for being family centric, people centric, loud, bold, tenacious, right? And that has helped me build the credibility to launch initiatives, launch businesses, and live a life that truly inspires not only others, but inspires me sometimes in the sense that it gets me focused, even when I have down moments, right? And so, my hope and aspiration for many of you who are on today's program is to get the bits and pieces from all the speakers and hear the highs and their lows, how they did it, how they built their careers, what lessons they learned, what they wish they knew, and what they know today, and sharing with you those shortcuts so you could get from point A to Z faster and better than ever before. So hopefully this explains and is a great response for those of you who've been asking why the Personal Brand Summit. And I pray that whatever dream or aspiration that you have in your heart, that it manifests to you 10 times more beautiful than you ever imagined. And I wish the very best for all of you on this session. So with that, I'm going to pass it back over to the team. Stan is going to introduce the amazing panel of guests. Each one of these speakers I've admired for a while. One of them is in the corporate sector. One of them did something in the VC space. Another one of them partnered with brands like Google, and she's such an amazing entrepreneur in her own right. Each one of them on this panel, they're dynamic, guys. Listen to what they have to say. Listen to their responses to the questions. I mean, it's going to be a rock out panel discussion. So Stan, I'm passing it back over to you so you could introduce the moderator, the beautiful moderator that's going to be joining us here today to kick off this panel. So I'm really excited about this. So Stan, over to you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Christine. And it's a pleasure to welcome this panel. This is an amazing panel, like Christine said, and they're going to be speaking on the topic, personal branding in a digital world, how to navigate your career and grow your influence. So in order to kick things off, I'd like to introduce the moderator of this panel, our amazing moderator. She's in the person of Tona Obaze. She's the founder and CEO of Tona & Co. Tona, welcome. I'm glad to hand over this panel to you to moderate it.
Thank you so much. Hello. It's so nice to meet you again, Christine. And thank you so much to everybody who's joining the Personal Brand Summit. Christine did such a wonderful introduction to talking about the power of personal brand and the importance of personal brand. And we have a wonderful panel who's going to talk us through how to use personal brand to navigate your career and grow your influence in the digital world. So I'm very excited to bring up to the stage our wonderful panelists who are going to be joining us. We have Patia and Lolo and Fola, who are all joining us from different spheres of the industry. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves because I think what they all represent is that when it comes to personal brand, regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of what you focus on, there's the ability for you to build your influence from your zone of expertise and from your zone of genius. So why don't we go around and have each of the panelists introduce themselves? Maybe we can start with you, Anne, and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here today. So I'm Anne, I'm Danish, but I live in US. I've been here for more than 10 years. First started in Silicon Valley and then New York and now LA. So I'm a tech sustainability background. I worked more than 21 years for SAP. And then I got really into sustainability in 2015 when the 17 global goals came out. And then I built something called SDG Ambition, which is the most used sustainability framework in the world that is owned by UN. And then I went and worked in the oil and gas industry, engineering. And now I am working with EY, and I'm doing a lot of advisory to help companies to become sustainable companies. So this is me. Thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you so much, Anne. We're so excited to have you, and it'll be incredible to hear about in the growing field of sustainability, how you've been able to leverage your personal brand to give you access to those different roles and career opportunities. Patia, why don't we go to you next to share a little bit about who you are and what brought you here today?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Patia Abdurazak, and I'm coming to you live from my WeWork location in Harlem, New York City. I'm so happy to be here. So I am a digital marketing strategist, and the way I exist in the digital world and in the physical world as a digital marketing strategist is that I own a boutique firm. It's called the Stylista Group. We're 14 years plus and growing, and we provide, as you can guess, digital marketing services to lifestyle and luxury brands. I'm also an adjunct professor at CUNY, City University of New York, and I'm sure you can guess that I teach digital marketing and social media marketing to the young ones. That's very important to me because we really need to prepare our young people for the world that's going to come, and that's something that's in my blood. I come from a long line of teachers. And then my connection with GSE is that I am their assigned what's called a Grow with Google Partner Trainer. So for those of you who don't know, Google has a program where they support organizations like GSE with professionals like myself who they contract, and we do events for them. We do lots of trainings. If you were following GSE over the pandemic, you probably saw me a lot. And so for me, in terms of my personal brand, it's just really important for everyone to know me for what I do. And of course, as Christine says, bringing a lot of my personality and my personal experiences over to my professional life, I think is very important and why I connect with the people that I do. So I'm so excited to have this discussion with you, ladies.
Thank you for sharing. It's going to be incredible to hear about you sit in multiple roles, like a number of people on this call, how you
Right.
use your personal brand to really house all of the different career opportunities and the career roles you take on.
Right.
Next, we'll have Lolo, if you could introduce yourself as well.
Hi, Tona, and hi, fellow panelists. Thank you so much. My name is Lolo. I'm based in Botswana, and I run a social enterprise called Uma Africa, really focusing on the co-creating impact, meaningful impact, particularly working with women, with young people, with individuals, institutions, as well as governments and regions. My background, I've worked in corporate communications in the diamond mining sector, cross-border trade, SADC Secretariat, your regional integration. Um, I believe I've met Anne Rosenberg before, if I'm not mistaken. She gave a TEDx talk in Johannesburg. I was the on-stage host at the time. I love storytelling. I've been involved with the TED community, TEDx community, um, I'm really, really passionate about sustainable change, sustainable impact through systems thinking. I'm involved in different spaces and advisory in the education space, innovation space, investment, as well as trade. I'm a mom, and I believe it's important as we speak about the digital space to bring in the personal aspect, because you can't really separate those two. And the space of care is very, very important as we speak about career progression. I'll leave it at that, and the rest will come as we interact. Thank you so much, Tana.
Thank you so much, Lolo. I think you hit on a point that we're all going to be emphasizing, which is the importance of making sure that your personal life is part of your personal brand, even in the professional space. So I'm excited to hear you talk more about that. And last, we have Fola from the Strategic Project Leader. Welcome, and would love to hear a little bit about your journey and what brought you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. As you all know, my name is Fola F. Hallaby, and a lot of people call me the strategic project leader. And what actually stems from is I come from a career of over 2 decades of executing on projects and managing the project management office. Throughout my life, I have found and realized that life in and of itself is a project. When you think about goals, you think about needed change, projects actually bring all of this to life. And so project professionals are the ones who come into organizations and definitely help them achieve strategic goals and objectives. They bring strategy to life. And so throughout my careers, I've worked for global organizations, from the New York Stock Exchange. I work for the Department for Transport in London. I'm currently in Canada at the moment. I moved here about 10 years ago as well, after living over a decade as well in England. However, I have actually seen that there is an opportunity, not really a gap, for project management to take center stage, where we can sit right at the table at the C-suite level to help drive strategic goals and objectives. So rather than leaving it to executives to actually set strategy and hand it over to the project professionals who actually just execute on it, we need to create that full loop from strategy design to project execution to benefit realization. At the end of the day, we want to realize the benefits that we are set out to achieve from day one. And so, what my organization actually does is to empower project managers to become strategic project leaders, where we drive change, we drive strategic objectives, and overall, we ensure organizations become more successful. And that's just aside from it. I also have a passion that is tied to helping people achieve their goals. And that's obviously ties pretty in, because I am also the founder of what I call the No Gap Foundation. Our goal is to bridge the opportunity, relational, and health gap for women, youths, and visible minorities. And we're going to be kicking off our first initiative by the end of the year. And so I'm super excited to come on this journey. And when we talk about branding as well, I have just been passionate about helping people and supporting people throughout my career. And so this is an opportunity for me to share my story and help inspire someone, because life indeed is a project and you need to make your life project count for something. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was just about to say it's incredible to have the project management and project leadership mindset as part of this conversation, because at the end of the day, your personal brand is part of your life project. We've transitioned in life to a point in our careers where it's not just good enough to be a strong and strategic professional. Part of being a successful professional is building your personal brand, whether it's within your organization, within your industry, or really across the globe. So very, very happy to see that you're bringing that strategic mindset, because it is something that we all have to lead and own and build strategy to execute. So jumping into this conversation, which is going to be focused on how we can all navigate our careers and success using our personal brand, I would love to start with you, Lolo, to talk a little bit about how you have seen women and girls achieve their career goals using their personal brand. We know that the work that you do really focuses on empowering women and girls through entrepreneurship. So it would be great to hear about the way that you've seen personal brand play a role in helping women achieve their larger goals.
Thank you so much. There's something quite phenomenal when somebody shows up knowing that they matter, knowing that their contribution matters, feeling seen and feeling validated, or even just at a point where they're able to validate themselves. What I've seen, I'm just going to start with UMA Africa. So basically what we have is mentees on a cohort. And we've seen them evolve into spaces where there's no rocket science, but they simply evolved and remembered who they were, and they showed up differently. And what that does, they're able to do what? To smash stereotype. They're able to break barriers. They're able to face their fears, accentuate advocacy. They create community just by showing up more boldly, occupying space, less timidity, less needing external validation. They affirm themselves. They announce their arrival without assuming that they've arrived, right? And what I've seen in the evolved version of these amazing women and gentlemen is them igniting their own influence. And what is important is that this is all coming from within the same individual, same person showing up differently. Shakari,
that's incredible.
Recently, yes, so Shakari recently, her parting shot in her interview after winning, she said, "I'm not back, I'm better." That speaks of understanding the rebranding that has taken place. And guess what? The world follows. So for me, there's so many elements, so many benefits to knowing your own identity and being able to position yourself firmly.
Thank you so much. And it was wonderful to hear the example that you gave with Sha'Carri Richardson, the world champion in track and field. And I think what's most impactful there about what you said is that personal brand can be the fuel that ignites you to really achieve your goals, that propels you forward through adversity, that propels you forward to reach for the stars, to advocate for what you're truly passionate about. And that a big part of personal brand is it's not changing yourself. It's really reaching within yourself to discover who you are, what matters to you, what you're passionate about, and just letting that be the forefront as you walk through your day, your career, your projects, your goals. So I think that core part of authenticity and how that links to the fuel of your career is really, really important. And thank you so much, Lolo, for your response. Fola, I would love to hear you talk a little bit about the elements of a strong personal brand. Lolo spoke a little bit about how important it is that there are different elements that play a role. So if you can tell us about not only the elements of a strong personal brand, but also how social media plays a role in how you can promote your personal brand and social change.
That's a question for me, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. When we think about branding, all that comes to mind for everyone is the fact that I need to be an organization, or I need to be a startup, an entrepreneur before I create a brand. And then you think about the colors, you think about what exactly, how am I going to position and all of that. However, over the years, I have had to take a deep sense of, self-actualization and review at my core, what exactly do I really want to be known for? So for all the professionals out there, even for entrepreneurs, you think about it, what exactly do I represent on and offline? And what I came up with was a term I called value. In everywhere we show up, within every position, it's about what exactly is the value you are definitely offering the public, your niche, your customers, your clients. And it starts with a V. The V for me is the vision and clarity. What do you want to be known for? What does that really mean? Is it about the impact you want to make for women, for children? Is it about how you shape the global economy? Is it about the products you actually serve? What exactly is that vision? How clear are you with that? The A again is the authenticity. I know that Lulu has touched on that as well. You want to show up as authentic as possible. And a lot of the times we find that we have got like different masks that people put on, especially people who are already employees. They feel, I probably already have my day job, and maybe I'm an accountant already, and I want to start a brand. Do I show up as an accountant, or do I show up as a makeup professional who does makeup, offline as well? How do you show up? But there's actually an art and a science and how you can blend both worlds together to showcase the fact that you're good with numbers and maybe you've also got an eye for beauty. But the key here is how do you weave in all of this together to ensure that you show up and people can actually fall in love with you and for what you stand for. And the L there for me is leverage. What exactly is your leverage? And those things are going to be your strengths. What are the things that you're really, really good at? Where is your zone of genius? Your strengths, your experience, your personal stories. Because at the end of the day, people say, I don't think I know enough of that. But the fact is, there's always going to be someone who probably knows something more about a particular subject matter or probably has a better product. But your experience and your stories are totally unique to you. So how you show up every single day, think about your leverage. How you even improving on those things. Those pieces are going to shape the brand that you actually create. And the you for me there is understanding your audience, understanding the market. What do they really want? There's no point showing up and saying, I want to become known for something absolutely random and people don't really care. You need to go and do your research. In my classes, I walk through a process I call the strap up method. You need to do some tactical research to understand the market, being business savvy to understand that where exactly are the needs and how can I become the most valuable person, the most valuable organization that will stand out every single time. Understand the audience is absolutely key and being relatable. And just like Lulu said, just like Petty has actually said as well, I'm just a mom like so many people. I've had my struggles. I've had my day job. I never use the word failure. I've had a lot of lessons that I've had to go through, but I do not want anyone to go through the pain that I have gone through in the past. And that's why I show up every day and present value around strategic project leadership. And then the E is about engage and educate. Every time you show up, be a product or a service organization, how do you engage with the audience? How do you engage with your customers? And how do you educate them on the value you present every single day? Be it on social media, be it even offline, when you're working in the community. I was in Saudi Arabia a month ago where I was actually speaking. I saw people walk up to me and say, Fola, I listened to your podcast. I'm like, oh my God, in Saudi Arabia? But yes, the fact is that the impact you're making, you cannot believe how far you can actually reach because the world is a global village. From Saudi Arabia to Johannesburg, all the way to China, people are watching. Show up daily. Think about the value you represent. And believe it or not, you have got the edge and everything within as your playing field. Back to you, man.
Thank you so much, Fola. That was such a wonderful framework for anybody who's looking to launch their personal brand or audit your personal brand that you've already been working with. That value, that vision, authenticity, the leverage, the understanding the market, and education and engagement, that is a beautiful structure, a strategic structure for you to be able to really look at your personal brand and to check in with yourself. Because I think an important thing is that your personal brand can evolve and grow as you evolve and grow. And it's important to make sure that your your personal brand includes all parts of who you are and the duality of who you are and the multiple roles that you play in your life, whether that's in your family, in your profession, or with your passions. And speaking of the way that personal brand can connect to your passions and your values and beliefs about the world, Anne, I would love to have you jump in here to talk about how personal brand can help you advocate for your values and your beliefs, whether that be around your beliefs about the world or even raising awareness for concepts like sustainability issues.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Fola, for that great framework. So just a little bit about my brain, and then how I got into thinking about a brain, and then replying to your question. So when I moved to Silicon Valley, I was probably late in my 30s, beginning my 40s. It was beginning my 40s, and I've never thought about having a brain before. Never in the culture of being Danish, it's not a thing. It's becoming a thing more today. You don't have like your personally website. At that time, people were beginning to communicate on social media, but it was not like you didn't put yourself in as a brand. There were a few people who did that, but it was not like something that you did professional. But I remember coming to Silicon Valley. It was like some of the first thing I did, and people came up to me and said, being a woman in tech, you need to have a personal brand. You need to go out and speak on behalf of getting more women into STEM, into tech, and so on. And I think what triggered me to begin to build the brains without really thinking about it before, and being actually very, you can say, not putting myself in the middle of the conversation, was that I did it because of a belief and because of a mission. So my brains is based on my mission, my belief. And I think we all touch on it, is that if you build a brain because you're building this illusion around yourself, and it's more to have a brain because everybody needs a brains, that might work. But I believe the strongest brain is if it become the mission in life. For me, it is my mission in life is very clear. It's about I always say I have a secret backpack, and what I have in that backpack is what I do to fight for the 17 global goals. And that's why I went from SAP to work on oil and gas companies. I'm on a mission to do what I can to do in the sustainability and tech worlds. So my brain is about my mission, and that is where my belief in. And then when and I can see it on all the other speakers here, is that then I believe you're able to deliver your brain much more strong, because you get inspired. And what I think the most important thing is that it's become bigger than you. So my brain is not about me, but it's about what I can contribute with on my mission. But I will also say one thing is that, and you also said it, Sunana, is that your brain evolve over time, and that's the reason why you and now I'm probably the oldest person in this session here, is that if I look at my brain, that even though I first started on this for around 10 years ago when I came to US, and not to say that's a US thing, it's just that was first when I began to build my brain, is that my brain have evolved over time because my belief have, and my passion and my obligation in life, what I'm all about, have changed. And so that is about being true to your brains, is super, super important. And then I also want to say that the last thing I want to say is that if your passion is equal to your brain, whatever your passion is, you will never put yourself in a situation where you don't feel okay about what you're doing, which is super important, because you can be misunderstood. And then sometimes we often think too little about ourselves, or we often have a perception about ourselves. So sometimes go and do a check externally about how, and I think, Fola, you also, talk into that. How do other people perceive you, right? And that is important, because if you're very passionate about what you're doing, and I love for you to talk about, I need to reach out to you about the project manager, because I couldn't agree more on that, what you said about that. That's the really executors, right? Is that, but do a validation check on how do people see me, because that is important. Do I really get my mission across, right? So I think I think that's the last thing I want to say in respect to that. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Anne. I mean, all of your comments have really worked together to understand the importance of a personal brand, the way that showing up authentically can provide the fuel for your career. Fola walking through how you can build that personal brand with the value framework. And then Anne really talking about how that personal brand needs to be tied to your mission and that is truly the bedrock of your work. And that is how you can make sure that as you evolve, your personal brand evolves naturally with you. For myself, I know building my impact advisory firm, my mission has always been around sustainability and impact, using my skills and abilities to help underserved populations pursue their potential and discover their purpose. And ultimately, part of having a personal brand is having that mission statement so that you can check in and constantly be validating if that is what the world sees you as, is that if that is what you are still dedicated to as a belief. So really that relationship between authenticity, your personal brand, and your mission forms a really solid foundation. And now we're going to have Patia talk to us a little bit about how you can use that to attract customers and to attract partners. Because whether you're using your personal brand just to attract career opportunities, there's also the ability to monetize your personal brand and have it be a gateway to being able to build a business or to attract partnerships. So I would love to hear a little bit about how personal branding can be used to attract customers and partnerships and how you see social media playing a role in that.
Right. So social media, I feel, is really leading the charge in this because it is your personal brand footprint, right? Your digital footprint has actually become more important than how you show up in the physical world, because many times this is the first interaction that someone may have for you. So to demonstrate how important a strong personal brand can be, or the opportunities that it can unleash for you, I'll just tell you the story of how I became connected to GSE. So let's go back to late 2019, and I get a call from someone that I had not heard from in about a good 5 years. And it was like, oh my God, I literally, happy to hear from her, but what does she want? And she said to me, Patia, I am now working for Google. And we have this professional trainer team. It's invitation only. There's no way you will ever see them advertising for somebody to apply for this position. And we're expanding the team. And for some reason, the first person I thought of was you. 5 years later, had not said a word to each other, but observing each other online. You say happy birthday on Facebook, you see people are moving around, that sort of thing, but no real interaction. Now, I had had a really strong working relationship with this person previously. And so there's a 5-year gap. And now she has this opportunity, and the first person she thinks of is me. And she goes, I hope you're interested. I would really like you to apply. And I'm saying to myself, Google, of course I'm interested, right? Now, the story here is that when you show up as your best and most importantly, authentic self, right? And you're always that person, and you lay a really strong foundation for what you stand for, and it is well received, because the important thing here is that we can think the world of ourselves. If it's not translating that way to other people, then it's not going to work. And being authentic, I think, is the first step towards being received in the way that you're being you're portraying yourself, right? So had she not had a really good impression of me 5 years later, there's no way that I would have gotten this phone call and the invitation to apply for this program. So you're invited, right, to apply, and then you go through a really rigorous process, and then you make it or you don't make it. Thankfully, I made it, and this is how I became attached to GSE. And so the lesson here is that you have to be intentional about the way that you show up all of the time. One of the things that I tell my students who are trying to figure out, what they're going to be, what they're going to do, what they're going to stand for, is that, I am really happy that when I was a young person, there was no social media, because as young people, we do crazy things, right? The difference here is that young people these days, they're overly exposed. And so a very important part of your growing up and making mistakes is forever documented online. And so you have to be really careful about how you are showing up in the online space, because there are things that can come back to haunt you 10, 20 years later, right? So you have to be extremely intentional. Even if you're still trying to figure out what you want to do, just always think, my future self, I need to make sure that I am not doing things that my future self will pay for. right? And so in terms of deciding how you begin to build a personal brand, right? Because the minute you hear about somebody, I'm sure you guys have already Googled us, you've gone to our LinkedIn profiles and that sort of thing. You really have to understand that it's okay for your personal brand to evolve, but whatever is out there about you has to be consistent and it has to be positive. One of the things that I always advise is that while it is okay for you to show glimpses of your personal life, in your professional space, it's a great idea to separate them if you can online. So have your personal pages that are secure, where you only share with friends and family, and then you can begin to build your personal brand in a more public space. And it's quite okay if that brand evolves, but you just really want to be really conscious of what is going on in that public space. And so the first thing that everybody should do, that I wish I knew, and thank God I have an unusual name, so I was able to do this way years later, is that you should purchase your name in the online space. So you should buy your name as a domain, right? So everybody here, it'll probably cost you like $2 unless you have a really common name, because that will be your online personal brand platform over time. And this is your online platform that you actually own, because guess what? We can have Facebook profiles, we can have LinkedIn profiles, we can do all of these things online, but we don't necessarily own those profiles. And so if for some reason those businesses decide to, change or go out of business, there goes your really strong digital footprint that you had built. However, you always have control over your own personal domain, and you will have the ability to represent yourself, to share your knowledge, to, evolve over time in interesting ways, in a way that you actually own. And so if you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, well, this is, a lot to do, I think everybody here has said that the first step is to really do some introspecting and, kind of decide what you're passionate about. So when I went to college, I was going to be a chemist. Totally not me. Anybody that I tell this story is like, what the heck were you thinking? What did I know? I was 17. I was really good at chemistry. After 2 years, I realized that had absolutely nothing to do with who I was as a person. Right. And so at that point, I had to make a decision. Am I just going to go through with this and be miserable for the rest of my life? Or am I going to tell my parents? And if anybody knows anything about immigrant parents, you don't switch up from being a chemist 2 years later in college. That's something that, can get you into a lot of trouble. But my parents gave me the space to do it. And I took a marketing course and fell in love with it. And I always think back to how my life probably would have been so different and not the way it turned out had I stayed on that path that had absolutely nothing to do with who I really am as a person. And I think that I am able to show up and keep working hard even while things aren't going so well. And, it's always an up and down, right? That's life, because I'm really passionate about what I do. I really believe in what I'm doing, especially the teaching part, because I'm passionate about educating young people, especially young people who may not have the opportunities that everybody else does. So I teach at Lehman College in the Bronx, and you guys know in the US, the Bronx is the poorest borough in New York City. And I think Lola spoke to this, I see how at the beginning of the semester, a lot of these children, they show up, young people show up, and their self-doubt and their excuses and their excuses and their excuses. And I am very tough. Like, I am aware that most of them do not like me when they meet me at first. And then they realize that, look, she may be a little crazy, but she believes that I can do better than I'm doing. And I've seen how quizzes go from barely passing to excelling. People have crazy ideas and they're like, I can start a business. And for me, as I move into this next stage of my life, like, that is actually becoming a lot more important than the, corporate work or the work that I do with my clients. Because for me, I feel like the value that I can add to somebody who needs to figure themselves out, who may not have had the opportunities that they've had up to this point, like, for me, that's becoming really exciting. So as I think of my own personal brand, these are things that I've been thinking about, honestly, for the last 12 months. Like, what's the next stage for me? Like, I definitely know that I still want to exist in the digital space. AI is coming. I'm excited about that. There's going to be the metaverse. That's going to be something completely new. But how do I want to continue to show up in that space? And how can I really focus on the things that are becoming a little more interesting to me going forward.
That is so incredible. And thank you for sharing your story. I think some of the key takeaways from that for the entire group are really to be introspective and to be intentional about your information. So number one, really being introspective. I think that's been a key theme of this entire panel, that your personal brand starts with you and you exploring for yourself who you are, what you care about, what your values are, and how you want to show up in the world, how you want to be remembered, what your footprint is. And like Patia said, it's very important to be very focused on what your current footprint is, what the information that you have out there is, how you can own your information through owning your domain, and then really thinking about, again, as you evolve, making sure that there's that central and consistent theme because you're rooting your personal brand and what you care about. And like we see with her story, it's when you're intentional and introspective about your information and about your brand that you can have opportunities find you, because only a portion of the successes in our lives are going to be things that we reach out and find for ourselves. More often than not, it's going to be about you showing up authentically, somebody remembering your expertise, your information, your brand, and then bringing an opportunity to you. So it's very key that we're all aware of that. And you can be intentional, you can take it slow, but it's very important that you don't let that self-doubt hold you back. So I know we only have a few minutes, so I would love to do a lightning round with our 4 panelists where you just quickly and briefly talk about one challenge that you've seen in building social brand. I know Patia spoke a little bit about self-doubt, one challenge you faced or one challenge you've seen, and then also one way that you measure success. What does success look like in terms of having a personal brand, whether it's getting opportunities or being able to be on panels like this? Would love to hear a little bit about that from everyone. And Anne, maybe we can start with you. One challenge and one metric of success.
If I start with the metric of success, I sometimes get surprised about the opportunities that you get, and Patricia talked about it because of your digital footprint. Because often you have an intention when you post a LinkedIn post, or so I go a lot to UN events around the world, like COP and all different kind of impact event. And sometimes, I'm thinking in more or less from an impact perspective, but then the connections that you get sometimes surprise me, which is great. But I will also say that some of the difficult things is that I also tried that you can get misunderstood. And that's why I talked about before, like sometimes you need to do some kind of check on, how is people see, and there's nothing wrong and right here, right? There's nothing wrong and right here, because all the great people that is on this panel here, we have, we work with our brain, we have many things that we are doing, but there's also people that come from a whole other angle and don't understand this thing about having a personal brand, to think that is too much, right? Like you're putting yourself in front of stuff where you're actually using in my case, as I said before, I'm using my personal brand to move my impact mission and doing good for the world, right? But that can also be misunderstood. I think people think that this is all about you, but it's actually not about me at all. Yeah. So
that was a really good one. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it is a balance of that individual personal brand and also doing it for a larger collective. Lolo, would you like to touch on either a challenge or a success metric?
Thank you so much. So the way that I'll respond to that is twofold, right? With regards to challenges, I'll give it an ABC, which is really authenticity. AI is giving us an opportunity to reinvent ourselves, and in the process, denature what we think we are, or who we actually were created to be. So it's important that we embrace technology innovation, but maintain a sense of identity. My second challenge that I'm seeing is boundaries. we are not defining boundaries enough, and boundaries are created to protect you more than anything else. And what has been articulated since earlier on is clarity. Brene Brown says clarity is kind. We need to be clear about who we are, what we want to be remembered for, and what it is that we stand for. And regarding metrics for success, let me give it 3 M's. And I'll say, number 1, memorability. How easy can you be top of mind? When Pesha just spoke about how she, after 5 years, was top of mind with a colleague that she worked with, and there was a right? So memorability, monetization. How is it that your fancy offerings and your nice writing and so forth, how is it that you can monetize that without over commoditizing yourself? But let the money topic not be something that we shy away from, especially as women. And then most importantly, are you making a difference? Really, the contribution that we make is what we ought to be measured on more than anything. Thank you so much, Tona. You're on mute, Ms. Tona.
Thank you.
You were muted.
Yeah, I loved those ABCs and the 3 M's. Beautiful, beautiful framework. And we'll pass it over to Fola, who also comes with her strategic project leader mindset, to talk a little bit about any challenges and any metrics of success when it comes to measuring personal brand.
Thank you so much. And I love that. For me, I want people to think about branding around reputation. Because a lot of the times when you hear the word brand, you're like, gosh, that's for an organization. When you think about a reputation, so everyone feels and sits back and say, what do I want to be remembered for? What's going to be my reputation? Is it one as people scroll back and say, when it comes to excellence, I know I can call her Lulu. When it comes to creating something complex, she can simplify that. So our reputation is one that we have to guard. And so as an employee or as an entrepreneur, when you show up, you think about, how do I show up? Am I consistent? Do I always consistently represent value? Because that's what's going to be the reputation that lingers on with you. And so the challenge I've always found is a lot of you is actually consistency. Like, how can I show up, for instance, on social media all the time and get created posts and do all of these pieces? It's just a lot of work. But Lulu has said that today we've got AI. We've got technology that can actually help simplify the process for you. The key there is just be you. I know that Patty actually spoke about being able to differentiate your personal life from your work life. I almost bet to differ, because when you want to become a sensation, everything kind of connects. You cannot, bring your personal life out of it, because at the end of the day, people want to know, what does Lulu do, in the evenings? How does she connect with her kids? Because when you come back with those personal pieces about you being a mom or whatever, people can actually relate. People buy your product or your service, not even just because of the product, but because of the transformation you create. Who connect with you on a deeper level as well. And so over time, I have found that at times, even when I see people who share things that are personal, I can actually relate and connect. I'm like, oh my goodness. So when I went through that person also went through the same thing. So there's that actual connection as well. And so for me, the challenge is about consistency that shows up a lot of the time, but how to overcome that is leveraging technology, but showing up consistently, delivering value. Value is a key for me. Even if you are there once a week, twice a week, but when you drop those nuggets, people can say, yes, Fola actually pulled my heartstring. Fola helped me create something better. And that's what we're here to do. Back to you.
Thank you so much. I loved what you said about consistency, and that also the metric of success is really building your reputation, because even if everybody doesn't want to opt into having a personal brand, everybody has a reputation as a person, a way that they're going to be described, and really owning your personal brand is taking ownership of that. And I'd love to wrap it up with Patya, if you can speak to us again about a challenge that you've seen in the personal brand space, and then also one way that you have seen to measure success, whether it's with your brand or with your Grow with Google clients.
Yes, absolutely. So challenges, I would say, for somebody who is just starting out, a lot of people get discouraged because they feel like, well, I'm just starting out and I don't know how to build a following. How can I place myself in front of the people that I really want to know me? And so some tips for that would be that you have to really identify the centers of influence in your space and begin to engage with them, because these people 9 times out of 10 already have the audience that you're hoping to place yourself in front of. And so by building relationships with them, like doing things like panel discussions, like writing a guest blogging article and having them backlink to you, by joining a Clubhouse discussion. There are lots of people who have figured out how to monetize Clubhouse just by joining conversations and raising their hands and adding value and getting amazing opportunities. And so it can seem daunting and challenging, but there's a strategy behind everything. I know Fola is going to agree with that. And so one of the strategies is to really understand the space that you're hoping to establish yourself in and to reach out and engage with people. You would be surprised at how receptive people are. My one tip for that, though, if you're reaching out to somebody that's really busy, be very intentional about what you're asking from them, right? Because busy people tend to have a lot going on, but they'll answer 1 or 2 questions. Just make sure that those 1 or 2 questions count. And then also offer something. Even if you're just starting out, we all have something to offer. And so when it seems more like a two-way conversation, people are more likely to help you. So that's a challenge and hopefully a solution for how you can actually begin to build your own online community. And then in terms of measures of success, I mentioned the Clubhouse example earlier. I know someone who, even though a lot of people are kind of not that familiar with Clubhouse or they're dismissing it as a fad, who has managed to book, pretty substantial speaking engagements by attending discussions and just raising their hands. So you have to engage. The digital space, I think, gives us so much more opportunities to connect with people worldwide. I mean, look at this panel, right? We're all at home, but we're engaging together on the global stage. I like that marketing piece for this event, by the way, the global stage. This is a global stage. And so just by showing up, by being yourself, by being authentic, and by always adding value over time, and it takes some time. I want to raise that red flag because people get discouraged. Oh, I've been doing this for 3 months and nothing is happening. You have to be consistent and you have to keep showing up. And over time, you will begin to monetize your brand. You will build a community and you will be seen as a positive center of influence within your own right.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our panelists. This has been such an insightful panel around personal brand, from learning what personal brand means, how it's tied to authenticity, the role that it plays in your career and your mission, but also how it can help you navigate opportunities and how you can maintain and grow and build your personal brand. All of these women on this stage have done a tremendous job throughout their careers in their different industries, growing their personal brand. And I encourage everybody who's listening to dig deeper into their stories, go and see their digital footprint and learn from all of them as you build your own personal brand. And remember that most of all, your personal brand is about you. And you are the only person who is going to be the best at being yourself. It's not about being an illusion or copying someone else. It's simply about taking that moment to be introspective about who you are and then having the courage and the audacity to share that with the world consistently. Thank you again so much to the global startup ecosystem for having all of us and for putting together this panel on personal brand.
Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you so much, Tona, Petia, Fola, Anne, and Lola. It was a real pleasure having you on. We followed the discussion keenly. The chat feed is buzzing with excitement, and I believe the audience here were following closely the discussions from all over, from Africa, from Europe, from the Caribbean, and we are really glad you could join us here today and share in this thought leadership as well. Thank you all so much. It was a real pleasure listening to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good one. Bye.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Wonderful, wonderful. So we've had the panel session. The panel was an exciting one, and you've heard from these amazing speakers that have come on today from all over. Impressive profiles, and their thought leadership was really great. We are really glad to have them on today, and I do hope that you pick the thing or two from them as well. We are continuing with the programming where we are moving to our next keynote speaker. But before we move on to the next keynote speaker, we would have a brief break. So this short break to stretch your legs. I know it's been a intense discussion, so it will give you a few seconds to stretch your legs and then um, grab some water to just refresh yourself as we continue with the programming now. So just a brief short break and then we can continue with the programming for the Personal Brand Summit.
Now, in order to be able to know how to craft your personal brand, you need to know your level. Where are you today to even know how to get to building a personal brand? So if I were to ask any one of you today, how many of you believe you already have a personal brand? Usually, on average, when I ask this question, I get divided responses where some of you say, yes, I do have a personal brand. And some of you say, no, I actually don't have one. Well, I'm here to give you the actual answer. The answer is all of you have a personal brand, whether you think you do or not.
Yes, and we'll dive right into it. Our next speaker is ready to go, so I'll hand it straight over to Ryan to take over the session.
Ahoy! How are you doing? Good,
Hi,
stressed?
Ryan. Welcome. We are glad to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm ready to rock and roll. So let's go. Give me the full screen and let's do this thing. Ahoy, everyone. I hope you got a nice little break. Oh, Letitia's back. And maybe we'll go back. Here we are. Hey, back and forth, back and forth. So I'm super excited to be here today, and let's kick right off into this. So I'm going to move out of my own way, and I want to tell you all a story. Now, this is actually a story from 2 weekends ago when it was my birthday weekend, and I sailed over to Catalina Island. And what we did is we ended up in this very cool little remote spot. And it was my wife and I on our little sailboat. And I love to spend my birthday in nature. So we're looking at the shoreline and we're like, wow, look at all those rocks. Look at that summit up there. This looks cool. Let's go on the beach and go for a walk. And we call it rock walks because there's just a bunch of rocks. And so we're checking out the rocks. So we're looking at this. We're like, wow, this is cool. And we get closer and we see like in these big rocks, there are smaller big rocks. And then we look closer and we're like, there's small rocks inside of these small rocks. And then there's tiny rocks inside of the small rocks, inside of the rocks, inside of the rocks. And what the reason I'm telling you the story about rocks is that summits are made up of big rocks from smaller rocks. And your brand summit is your big story made from smaller stories. And so today, I'm going to share with you some insights on how to build and get to your brand summit. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ryan Foland. I'm a speaker, I'm an author, and I'm a proud ginger. And ginger means my freckles and my red hair, although I do have a nickname as Bra Quiqu Ginger, and I am very proud of that. So think of me as somebody to give you some energy. Think of me as somebody who is your mentor. So how's everybody doing today? I'm looking at the chat. It looks pretty quiet. Are we good? Are we having a good time at the summit? You guys ready to go? Right, let's figure this out. Feel free to chirp in. Now, I am going to, oh, it looks like I lost my full screen. There we go. I'm going to help you understand how to ascend to the authentic you, especially when it comes to owning the climb to your own brand summit. So this is you up here at the top, and this is the brand summit that you're standing on. Now, it's a little cut off, but if you don't see there, whether you are have no hair or long hair, no matter what you look like, we're all stick figures at the end of the day up on top of this hill. So if you look back to this sort of photo, at the very top, you have your brand summit, the summit of the hill. We've got big rocks below it, and then smaller rocks below that. And so big rocks are made of smaller rocks. And for the sake of analogy here, those smaller rocks are made of what I call as brand crumbs. It's like breadcrumbs, but brand crumbs. Now, brand crumbs in real life are little small stories that you tell, little insights that you give. They could be something you share on social media. They could be a conversation with a friend. But at the end of the day, for you to get to that brand summit, as Christine's talking about, this brand that maybe you don't identify with, but that you all actually have, those mountains, the summit where you're trying to go, is all built on your brand crumbs. And so what is a brand crumb? It could be a video that you make. It could be an image that you share. It could be an audio snippet. It could be you speaking. It could be you writing. It could be you tweeting. And so all of the little pieces of content that you share, I want you to think of them as little crumbs that add up into little rocks that add up into hillsides, little hillsides that add up to be your brand summit. And so, as Christine was mentioning that little interlude, your brand at the end of the day, it's just who you are. So if you're trying to figure out what is my brand, then look in the mirror, because you already have everything you need. You just might not be sharing it with people, so they might not know enough about your brand to know you. Your brand is somewhere in the middle between what you want to be known for, or what you think that you are, and that intersected with what other people think about you. Now, other people think about stuff that they see online. They might think about things that they hear over conversation. They might see you and look at you or watch you interact with other people, and they'll make assumptions. But that's not exactly who you are. And you can't just say, well, this is who I am, and just that be the case. There's an intersection there where when what you want to be known as is what other people think about you, that becomes your brand. And the exciting and scary part about brand is that it precedes you. You can't avoid it. It is in front of you. And it's more than just your job title. Maybe you're an entrepreneur, maybe you work at a company, maybe you're looking for a job. But who you are as a person is more than just what you do for work. It is what other people are talking about when you're not in the room. This is a famous definition by Jeff Bezos, but it's more than that. It's what you're sharing on social media. It's what you like to do for fun. It's what you do when you're not working. It's the pictures that you take. It's the reels that you share. It's the different pieces and the puzzles that you put together for people to get to know you. And the question here today in this summit, and I love the topic, is, how do you build your personal brand? And so I'm sure you've gotten some great insights from all the other speakers and from the panel. So take all that information and let's build upon that. How do you build your personal brand? Well, you basically build brand crumbs that become brand rocks that become your brand summit. And a mountain just doesn't appear out of nowhere. It starts and it has all of the elements that it is put together with. And so the secret to building a brand, the way I've been successful at building the brand, is building it one brand crumb at a time. And I've been after this for almost 10 years now with lots and lots of brand crumbs. And so if you're starting on this journey, don't be intimidated by where other people are at. You actually have to start with where you are. And to start is really to start creating brand crumbs. The tactic that I'm going to share with you today, the one single thing that has gotten me further along than any other tactic to build my personal brand, is spending 15 minutes a day on it. Now, you see my stick figures and you think, oh, these are awesome stick figures. Well, that's because I've been drawing stick figures for almost 10 years. I was just like you 10 years ago thinking, what is my brand? I don't have a brand. I don't know what to do. And somebody challenged me and said, what you need to do is focus on finding one thing that you can do every single day. And no matter what hell or high water, you have to do this every single day for 15 minutes. And this was in a big seminar. He was a big time speaker. And so I'm looking in my book with all of my notes, and I'm looking at my notes and I see all of these doodles and stick figure drawings. And I thought to myself, you know what? I can draw a stick figure every day. And that's when I decided every single day I would draw a stick figure. And I'll tell you what, the first stick figures were not that great. They were a little rough around the edges, let's say. But it didn't stop me. And every day that I made one, I shared it on Instagram. I shared it out into the world. I shared it on my social media. And so the idea here is that if you want to build a brand, it's about consistency, not intensity. And after drawing a stick figure every day for almost 10 years, now it's part of my brand. If you look at any of my social media, it shows I draw stick figures. You'll see stick figures. I shared a stick figure earlier today. I'll share one tomorrow and the next day. People associate me with stick figures. Why? Because they are my brand crumbs, and this is what I do to make sure that I continue to share who I am and my story. And at the end of the day, whatever you choose to do for 15 minutes, and I mean do it every day, it should be a way of sharing your story. Any part of your story, advice that you give, challenges that you face, things that you learn. Maybe there's things that you learned today that you can go share on your social media, and that is a brand crumb. But if you share something you learn every single day for 10 years, I guarantee people will identify you associated with that content, and you will have a very well-established brand. So this could come in the form of writing a small comment or a note or a little mini blog. It could be an opportunity to get up on the stages in your community or share with friends and family what you're thinking about. And it even could just be taking time to have conversations with people and let them know what's going on with you, what you're passionate about, what you're working on. Storytelling is your greatest asset. And building a brand is just helping people get to know your story. Your brand summit is this big story that's like your whole life. But your big story is made up of all these little tiny stories that happen every day. And when you document those stories, and more importantly, when you own your own story, that is the way that you help people get to know you. And it doesn't happen unless you actually put yourself out there. It's one thing if I would have just drawn stick figures and kept them to myself. That wouldn't have worked because nobody would have seen them. But I overcame the fear and I put myself out there and I started to share these stick figures every single day. 10 years ago, I had 0 followers on social media. Nobody knew who I was. Today, I have almost 400,000 followers across my platforms. I've published a book called Ditch the Act, which is published by a major publishing house. I speak on big stages around the world. I get paid for people, people pay me to help them learn how to build a personal brand. And I'm just teaching them what I did over the years. And so whatever it is that you're excited about, I challenge you for 15 minutes a day, work on it and then share it, because that is how you build brand crumbs, to build brand rocks, to build your own brand summit. And at the end of the day, I'm not saying this is easy. I was very embarrassed about my stick figures when I started. And I just pushed through that. I overcame the fear. I had a good support group around me and I continued to publish them. And now I have my stick figures that have been illustrated in other people's books. So the idea here is that building a brand is scary. Let's be real. To put yourself out there is kind of hard. But what I've noticed is that a lot of times people are resistant to share things because they don't feel like they have things that are worthy to share. They're like, well, I'm not successful right now. I don't have all the things that I want. Why am I going to share something that's not successful? I see everybody sharing successful stuff. Well, I'm here to share with you a fun and real fact. People don't really care as much about your story of success. And if you see people posting online, like, oh, I'm amazing, I'm great, things are great, life is great, you're kind of like, and you just feel bad about yourself. Now, there's nothing wrong with people sharing good stuff, but not enough people share because they don't feel like they have good stuff to share. People are not as concerned about your story of success. They're more interested in understanding how they see themselves in your story. And so these little brand crumbs that you share, this is how you can help people see that you're actually a lot more like them than they think. And so how do you build your personal brand? This is the magical question. I'm here to tell you the answer. The answer is to build brand crumbs, which become brand rocks, which become your brand summit. And the best part about this is that you don't have to be anybody but who you are. It's your personal brand. It's not somebody else's. It's who you are, and that's totally cool. So let me wrap this up and share with you the deal. Here is the deal. Let me give it to you real. The key to connection is to learn to reveal, because you are not perfect and neither am I. And that is the exact reason that we see eye to eye, because everybody's different, but we are all the same. To be perfectly imperfect is how you win the game. And if you only showcase good and do not share the bad, you will miss connections that you never knew you had. Facegram, Twitter book. Are you LinkedIn? Are you snapping out of TikTok trying to fit in? Stop worrying about everybody else. Focus on being your authentic self. And when you learn to ditch the act and learn to be yourself, 15 minutes a day, you open up a window to have people want to help you out. And at the end of the day, your success is only half of the story. So you got so many brand crumbs to share. And when you do that, you will find yourself at the top of the brand summit that you create, not somebody else's mountain that you climb. You build it stone by stone, crumb by crumb, brick by brick, rock by rock, until you have a foundation to stand upon, which you're proud of, because you have built your own brand summit authentically, because it's you and your brand crumbs that have built it. And the tactic to do this, just spend 15 minutes a day. Talk to me in 10 years after you share your stories for 15 minutes a day, or create content for 15 minutes a day, or have conversations with people for 15 minutes a day, or go on LinkedIn for 15 minutes a day, or put together a Facebook post for 15 minutes a day, and all of that adds up, and you will find yourself owning the brand that you already have in an authentic way, where you're standing on top of a mountain, a summit, your brand summit that you have built. That's what I got for you. And if you like my vibe, or you want to connect with Brock Quickway Ginger, you can't see it there, but it's just ryan.online. You can grab my book, Ditch the Act. I share everything that I've learned in my process. And at the end of the day, I'm telling you, 15 minutes is all you need every day. I continue to do it. I encourage you to do it too. That's what I got for you. Back to the Personal Brand Summit.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Ryan. That was an amazing session. It's always amazing with you. That was Ryan Folland speaking on the topic, Ascend to an Authentic You, Owning Your Climb to the Brand Summit. Ryan, it's always a pleasure having you on. And thank you for sharing your insights with us today on personal brand, how to build a strong one, and being an authentic you. And we love your stick figures, so we want to see more of that as well. But thank you so much for
You're
joining us.
welcome. But I'll remind everybody, my stick figures were very ugly 10 years ago. And the content that you create might be ugly. You might not be proud of it. But if you do it for 10 years in a row every day, you're going to get better. Your podcast will get better. Your blogs will get better. Your videos will get better. Your speech will get better. Your leadership will get better. Everything improves. Not overnight, but after 15 minutes a day.
Much.
All right. Well, if you have time for questions, I'm always happy. Otherwise, I'll let you guys move on with the brand summit. I know you have a bunch of awesome speakers lined up.
Yeah, thank you so much. We connect on future opportunities. It was a real pleasure having you on. So we'll quickly transition to our next speaker. It's my pleasure to welcome our next speaker. She's ready. She's ready to go on, and I'll welcome Dr. Anino Emua. She's the Managing Director of Avandis Consulting. She's going to be speaking on the topic, Crafting Your Entrepreneurial Identity, the Power of Personal Branding. So welcome, Dr. Nino Emua. I hope I'm getting your name right. Welcome to the Personal Brand Summit. It's a real pleasure having you on.
Thank you, Daniel. It is a great pleasure to be
welcome.
here. Hi, can you hear me? It's a great pleasure to be here.
Yes, perfect.
Right, and I must say, after our last speaker, I must tell you, I don't draw and I don't rap. Okay, now that's just to tell you how content is so individual to the person, and how it's rich and how it's valuable. So hello everybody, it's been a wonderful summit so far. I've had a chance to listen to the panel, listen to our last speaker, and there's a lot out of it. And even I myself, am learning quite a lot. What do? I help women rise. I work with organizations to build diverse leadership teams. And I also work with entrepreneurs to create successful businesses. And the reason why I'm here with you today is because when it comes to personal branding, I learned the hard way, and I don't want you to. And that's because there's so much impact that you can bring to the world that there's just not enough time to waste trying to figure out this path. Because I did do that. And I'll give you an example of what happened to me very many years ago. So I started out my career as a corporate banker, and that is exactly what I wanted to do. It was a job I loved. But as I transitioned and moved to another country years later, I found myself at a business event, a business reception with leaders and everybody in that room. And this gentleman next to me said to me, "What do you do?" And do you know what my answer was? This question took me aback because I was transitioning. So I'd left this high flying corporate bank job. And I said, "Nothing." And the look on his face was a look of shock. And that was because I wasn't prepared, because my identity up until then had been tied to my job and my title. And therefore, once I left that job, without the organization, without the title, then there was nothing. But is it the job and the organization that gives you your identity professionally? The answer is clearly not. And I don't want you to find yourself in that position. This is what personal branding is about. I'll ask you, and maybe later do this exercise. It's a very quick one. Introduce yourself professionally without using your name, without using your title, and without using your organization. And do that in one sentence or even a few words. It's hard, but it's important because that is your professional identity. And that is what very often people will remember. You can imagine yourself if you're in a big room or in a place and people hear so many names that they won't remember that, your name, probably. Unless you're working for the biggest brands in the world, they might not even, and most people don't, they might not even remember your organization. But if you can come across with that identity, that is what they'll remember. And why is this important? And what is that identity about? That identity, which is a professional brand, is all about the value you bring to other people. What is it professionally that you bring to other people? And that's what you want to encapsulate in a brief statement. And that becomes your personal brand, which needs to be coherent across the platforms and across the ways in which you communicate to people. Because it's a crowded marketplace and people easily get confused and people easily move on to different things, and attention spans are becoming shorter and shorter. When it comes to social media, even when it comes to the news, our impact very often is just the little scroll of the finger on to the next post, and that is it, you're gone. And so you have virtually fractions of a second to capture people's attention. So, how do you capture people's attention? You capture it when they know that you're providing value to them. And that's what you need to do, is you need to find out that value and you need to articulate the value in the things that you're doing. And one of these important things in that value is your authenticity. We all get, as creators, we all get inspiration from elsewhere. And as entrepreneurial human beings, we do. And that is exactly right. But getting inspiration is not the same as copying. Because copying is somebody who has created their own brand identity, which is all about them. And if you copy, you are not that person. So you need to create something that is authentic to you, which reflects your passion, your interests, your knowledge. And then you have to share that with people. And in that authenticity, you also have to be consistent. It takes a long time for your brand to be known by people. And it means constantly creating and being out there for people to understand the value you bring to them. If it's not something, if you're not authentic, or if you're not passionate about it, it won't last very long because it's consistency that is key and critical and important. And authenticity means that is something that the values that you are exhibiting are the values that you believe in. And that is what authenticity is about. Authenticity does not mean that you have to share everything about yourself, right? Because now we're talking about professional space. Whilst it says bring the whole of your self into what you're doing, but not literally, because even with our families and our friends, we have a part that remains us, right? But you want to show that what you are talking about and what you're discussing and what you're sharing is really something that you feel passionate about. And that is where the authenticity comes out, and that's where people begin to see your values. So, assuming you have this right, you can figure out what the value it is you bring into people. You are authentic. Where and how? How is this important? First of all, let's be honest about this. You're spending time and effort sharing. We're talking about professions. We're talking about how you earn a living. So this is not just for the heck of it and it's fun. It's about doing something you're passionate about that is going to provide for you financially. You have to live, you have to survive, you have to grow. So you have to understand who is buying from you and how are they buying from you. And therefore you're sharing the things that are important to them. It's there are many ways. It's not just one. There are several ways, and I think many years ago we'd look at the influencer and the brand partnerships, and that's very much still the case today. But I assure you, when you look at the figures, probably about 90% of the revenues that come from brand influencing go to a very tiny percent, right, of creators out there. And more than that, the number of creators that earn probably even $500 to $1,000 a month is extremely tiny from brand partnerships. So you might be on this call and you might be able to get those brand partnerships and you might grow to become one of those major influencers. And that's excellent. But for those and most creators who are not going to be at that level, does it mean that there isn't anything there? Of course not. There is a lot else. Because there are different ways in which you can monetize, right, your personal brand by being a creator. For the first thing is that people want to know you, and whatever it is you are creating, whatever it is you're selling, whatever product it is you have out there, people want to relate to you more and more. In those days, it was all about the product. Now people want to know more about the person behind the product than just the product itself. So that's a way of creating trust with people who are your potential clients. Now, social media is definitely one way in which you can engage with your audience, but it's not the only way. You can be a speaker, you can write a book, you can write blogs. If you are, a top person, influential, you might be in the media, and really the top most influential people actually are on all of those at once. But social media is certainly accessible to absolutely everybody, and that's really a fair place to for your brand and for you to share your personal brand and to develop your community. And community is really very important here. And when I say community, in those days it was all about your followers, right? And we still use those terms. But you create a community with the people around you, around your ideas, around what it is you're crafting, what it is you're discussing with them. And that creates trust. So you need to engage with them. So it's not a one-way thing where you're just sharing, it's actually a two-way thing. And when there's consistency and people begin to understand what you're about and the value you bring to them in their lives, they can identify with you. And then you find that your personal brand is getting stronger. Your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. That's that person, and this is what he or she does. And usually that does means does for them. And that is what you need to understand. What is that value are you what value are you bringing to people? And understand that need and provide for them. And you find that your audiences are growing. So here I was, in fact, I can't remember how many years ago I got on social media, but it's probably not very many years ago, probably about 7 years ago, or maybe even less than that, 6, 7 years ago, where I became, in fact, where I opened my LinkedIn account. And from the start, as I told you, where I didn't even realize what a personal brand was, something outside your job and your title. And I find myself today, after a background in corporate banking and being a consultant and sitting on global boards, I find myself a LinkedIn creator. I find myself a LinkedIn top voice. I find myself a TEDx speaker. I assure you, I did not ask to be a LinkedIn creator. I didn't find out about it. It happened. These things happen when your brand identity is strong, where you're creating value to people and people understand your authenticity and you're passionate and you're consistent. So these are some of the tips I'll give you. Be authentic, be passionate, be consistent, and know the value you bring to people. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I hope that came across and you all heard me, and delighted to be here with you. I don't know if you have time for questions or later, but otherwise, that's it from me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mwa. It was a real pleasure having you on this session today. It was great insights you shared. If you look in the chat feed, it's buzzing with excitement. I think people would reach out to you, and the team is sharing your LinkedIn. So if anyone has questions, they'll reach out to you via LinkedIn to get that across and connect with you. So do look out for some messages from attendees from the Personal Brand Summit. But thank you so much for coming on today. It was a real pleasure having you on. Thank you for your insights shared here today.
A great pleasure. Do look out for me on LinkedIn. I'm delighted to connect with everybody on this at the summit. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's not showing on my end. Tell me when it's done. I can't see it.
All right. Hello and welcome back, everyone, for the Personal Brand Summit. It's really an honor and a pleasure to introduce the next amazing keynote speaker. You people have seen Dr. Lisa Coleman in her prime here, just dropping wisdom on everyone on our session. So really excited for our keynote, Adaptive Innovation, Building Resilience and Brand Sustainability. Dr. Lisa Coleman, as always, a pleasure to have you. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Can you see my slides? I loaded them, but can you see them? No? You can? Okay, great. Just making sure. So we're going to get started. I'm a New Yorker, so sometimes I go a little fast, but I'll try to leave some time for questions. I heard the last presentation, so there'll be a little overlap, so I'll skip some of those. I'm Lisa Coleman, Senior Vice President for Global Inclusion and Strategic Innovation at New York University, and I hope everyone's having a good day. We're going to talk about innovation, resilience, and brand sustainability. Or innovating the self means knowing the self. If you're not branding yourself, you can be assured that others are doing it for you. What we know about branding is that professional branding are buzzwords, but what do they really mean? Your personal brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And that was just said during the last presentation. So it's about sponsors, and sponsors are about career resiliency. How do you make your career a resilient one so you're able to survive downturns, navigation, etc., so that people are talking about you when you're not in the room? How you see yourself, how others see you, that's your personal brand, that kind of combination of the two. Your personal brand allows you to differentiate yourself by articulating and leveraging your own unique value proposition. The last presentation talked a little bit about authenticity. How are you authentic? Bringing your whole self to work, not your whole self, but part of yourself that you know, right, in terms of the work that you do is important for you to bring your values. Why is personal branding so important? Because we have greater control. In the workplace, we know that emerging research tells us that emerging generations have more control and want more control. There's increased responsibility for competition. We have to manage, right, our own impressions of others that others have of us. And we also have to think about innovation in the job markets and shifting landscapes. So what is your entrepreneurial self? When you get to know yourself, what are those things that bring you passion? And how do you build resilience relevant to your industry? And that's about knowing your industry and, again, knowing yourself. So to innovate yourself, to go back, we differentiate ourselves from others, we maximize career potential, we build recognition for ourselves and for others. And as the last speaker talked about, we build community and networks. And this is really important. We research trends in our industry related to growth areas. That's about resiliency and innovating the self so you know what's ahead, know your value and negotiate your value. And remember, your brand is not in competition with others. There's room for us all. Your brand is about your value and your distinction. What are your current brands? What's your individual brand? When I think about my individual brand, I've been in this diversity work for a long time. So it's married my individual and professionalism, my ethics, the sustainability. People talk about the ways in which I do the work that I do, and that I have an inclusive practice, and that they can measure that across time, both at the individual, professional, but at all the institutions where I've worked, where I've left a legacy of institutional systemic change. And then, of course, my board of directors. So those people who are talking about you, those sponsors in your organization, but those sponsors outside of your organization. Who is your board of directors? Remember, your brand is not your logo. Again, it is your value. So who are you? What do you value? What are your goals? My goals were to ensure that I am a servant leader. I wanted to make sure that individuals had greater pathways, that I was providing opportunities for individuals. I'm passionate and motivated by that. And what makes me distinct in my field is that I have worked at some very distinct institutions. I've had very distinct titles. I'm a creator, I'm a brander, I'm a builder. We have to know, and you have to do what's called a brand self-diagnostic, which tells you a little bit about your brand and yourself. What are your values and your personality, your gifts and your current positioning, your passions and your motivation, and your network, as our last speaker talked about, and your connectivity. So what is your self-diagnostic? Because that will give you information about getting to know yourself so that you can develop your vision, figure out your passions and your motivations, and importantly, figure out who you are distinctly in the market, so that as you move forward, particularly as you grow your career. And I like to talk to people about professional branding, because professional branding is not just personal branding, right? It's about how are you branding yourself for this role, the next role, and the role after that. So what is your vision for your career? What motivates you? What are your triggers? What are the things that bug you and get under your skin and make you just want to leave your job? Because you have to know those triggers as well. Once you know those things, then you can begin to think about how do you leverage yourself and how do you really begin to be resilient and think about sustainability. So you can create your elevator speech, promote your accomplishments. Remember, promoting your accomplishments is not bragging. Promoting your accomplishments is naming them and then having others name them. And you have to stay relevant. And this is about being proactive. One of the ways that I stay proactive and relevant in my field is I always know what's on the cutting edge. We just had a Supreme Court decision here in the United States of America. I knew that Supreme Court decision was coming years ago. I knew that Supreme Court decision was coming when an executive order was issued 2 years ago. So we've been planning for 2 years. And now I'm planning for the next decisions. And that's about being proactive, because I've done my research, I've done my homework, I've looked at what has come before, and I'm also looking at my peers and what the industry is suggesting is coming forward. Choose your associates, have a positive attitude. I have to say, right, I know we all get down. I know it's difficult sometimes. We're all facing challenges. Even COVID is rearing its ugly head again. But remember, right, and I say this about diversity work, nobody likes a grumpy diversity officer. What we do like is someone who can deliver information. So you can deliver information that might not seem positive, but with a positive attitude. In other words, I have to deliver data sometimes does not reflect well on organizations, or I have to work with CEOs and C-suite individuals that I work with all the time, right? And sometimes I have to deliver information that no one wants to hear, but I try to deliver it in a way to also show the opportunities for growth and positivity, because I've done my research. So I've identified the challenges, but I've also identified the advantages and the opportunities moving forward. Remember, brand is also about consistency, visibility, originality, which is also about, and I heard this earlier, trust. How do you build trust, and how do you build integrity in the process of you? Leveraging and curating social media networks. I guess I won't have to go on about this one because the last presenter talked a lot about this. But really, I think, and I'll sort of dovetail or piggyback on what she was talking a little bit about, is that if you're maximizing and curating your social media, you have to think about the curation part. Sometimes we're all over social media. We're on, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, etc. But how are you curating that? What is it that you want to present in terms of your personal brand? I heard the last speaker talk about being on LinkedIn, right? I have a lot of followers on LinkedIn and connected to a lot of people on LinkedIn because that's the brand that I've used to curate my professional career. There are other people who will use Instagram, right? I'm not saying you can't use multiple forms, but you do need to think about the curation and the cross-pollination, because you have to make deeper connections. It can't be just post, right? And you also have to show connections and support of others and engage and connect offline, not just online. You have to know what you want to accomplish online, right? And choose specific platforms that match your delivery processes. Who is it? If you're a writer, you might want to be on WordPress, right? If you are a visual artist, then Instagram might be your platform. How are you using video and audio? I have my own YouTube channel that we created through NYU because we wanted purposeful, directed videos showcasing leadership around inclusion, diversity, and equity. What kinds of conferences and programs are you tweeting about and demonstrating the curation, but also your networks, right? And leveraging your social media to demonstrate who your networks are and how you want to grow those networks. And again, using your social media to also expand your personal and professional boards of directors. I'm going to end now because hopefully I've been about 10 minutes and leaving a little few minutes for questions. James Baldwin is one of my favorite authors of all time. And this quote means a lot to me. The world is before you and you need not take it or leave it as it was when you came in. My career and my brand has been about transformational change, changing institutions. And that is the brand that I have been able to sustain for 30 years. When I go into organizations, integrity, trust, consistency, value proposition, originality, innovation, and sustainability. You leverage yourself, you leverage your distinctions, and then you can move forward. This is my LinkedIn, just in case you all want to reach me. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but I appreciate it. And let me say this just to end again. Remember, your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And importantly, right, what that personal board of directors will help you direct through the course of your career. Who you meet now may be important 30 years from now. So remember, I just was talking to an author just before this, who I met 30 years ago, who said, I remember you when you were a graduate student at well, I wasn't a undergraduate student at XX. Because you asked these questions. You asked these questions about integrity, about authenticity, and I was setting up my brand even 20 years ago. Thank you so much.
What a powerful talk, as always. And Lisa, also so much like you shared today about how you built your personal brand. I know we don't have too much time for questions. However, if there's one thing that you hope that people could learn from your journey, what would that be?
The one thing that I would hope people would learn is that early in your career, start thinking about the arc of your career. Don't think about it as just a job. Think about the arc of your career and the job that you have now. It may not be the job you're going to have forever, but what are the skills that you are taking and can learn and can transfer to the next job and use that as part of your brand? If you have integrity, originality, innovation, if you're building capacity for your organization, if you're shifting the landscape, outreaching to new generations, outreaching across global cultures, those are skills. And bring those into your next and innovate, build that brand and keep it going and make sure that people know your elevator speech, be able to articulate it in 3 sentences. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man. Looking at the arc of your career there. Thank you so much, Dr. Lisa Coleman. Always an honor. I'll be catching up with you after this. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much.
Take good care, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Adaptive innovation, building resilience, and brand sustainability. And one key message that I thought was very powerful for what Dr. Lisa shared is resilience. I don't think we stress this enough. This is probably the first time I've heard someone not only talk about personal brand messaging, authenticity, trust, but also that resilience. Because right now, we're living in such a unique age and a unique time period. That resilience is going to get you to the other side, and also it creates a timeless legacy when it comes to your value proposition to your community. So hopefully that was a great takeaway that many of you learned from her keynote presentation here today. Without further ado, I want to move to our next amazing keynote speaker. This is a lady that I just love how she flows. I love the work that she does. It's really been an honor working with her in the past. So I do want to move on and be able to introduce our next amazing speaker on the session. We're going to introduce to the stage Sandra, who's going to be having her keynote, Living Your Purpose in Personal Branding Strategy. Now, this is a big one because many of you ask, okay, I know I need to build my personal brand. I know it's important, but what's not only the strategy, but how do I live in my purpose? Very powerful message. I can't wait to bring her on stage for the next 30 seconds. Get ready. Sandra is coming online to share with you her tips and strategies. Hi everyone, just waiting for Sandra to come back online to join us for this session. But as we wait for her to come back online, I do want to share with you guys that I hope that you guys are doing the homework and writing down these strategies because we do have a community follow-up after this point. So Sandra's back live and online. Sandra, welcome to the Personal Brand Summit. I'm not going to take any more time. I pass it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Christine, for the warm introduction. And what an act to follow, Dr. Lisa Coleman. Fun fact, she actually spoke at an event that I organized many years ago in New York City, Women in Data Science. So it was great to see her lovely face again and her powerful message. So hopefully you all got a chance to catch that. And I believe that I might be one of the last talks here today, so I'm super excited to be here and share some words of wisdom. My name is Sandra Mark, as Christine introduced. I'm originally a Danish national, but I live here in Hawaii, so I come to you today with aloha. I'm going to move into just a quick introduction to who I am because I really want to spend time connecting with you, getting to know the audiences through the chat, and also share some frameworks that I've used to guide my purpose strategy for my personal brand. As mentioned, I'm originally from Denmark, and that's a small country in Europe. Some people think it's the capital of Sweden. That's not the case. It's its own little country with 5.5 million people. And now I also live in sort of a small country here in Hawaii. We're a little bit more than 1 million. And what brought me here was actually my college degree 12 years ago, where I was part of this global program that brought me to different universities around the world. Hawaii Pacific University was one of them. And as soon as I set foot in Hawaii, I knew it was home. So that's kind of my personal journey to how I ended up here. I also did my undergrad studies in computer science and design. So I really appreciate great aesthetic and functional technology. And ended up coming back to Hawaii to pursue my MBA in international marketing and cultural studies. Besides from having that educational background, I have spent almost a decade now in technology. I remember graduating from college here in Hawaii, applying for hundreds of jobs in Silicon Valley. That was the only place I wanted to work. I wanted to be at the center and of innovation, which ironically, getting into my career, I found out that there are many centers of gravity when it comes to innovation around the world, from Silicon Cape in South Africa to Silicon Valley to Silicon Samba in Brazil. So that's been such a great learning journey, just understanding that there's opportunity for innovation everywhere in the world. As you can see from this slide as well, I spend a lot of time in the nonprofit space. So outside of my day job, a new job that I've actually started 4 months ago at Autodesk, a truly inspiring company that I encourage everyone to look up after this session. I also spend time with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I sit on the advisory board for UN Women in Silicon Valley, an organization that I've been heavily involved with for the past 7 years. So yeah, besides from that, personally, I'm a mom of 2 boys. I'm a globetrotter. I love everything about the world, and I try to just do everything. I think that there's just so many great things to nature, food, music, whatever it is. I'm always excited to embark and engage. But now I want to get to know you, and I see Einstein join me here on the sidelines. So hopefully that doesn't mean that there's a technical issue with the audio. Oh, here we go. He's out again. But yeah, if you could just share with me in the chat, and I know that there are various chats both here on the platform with StreamYard, but also on social with LinkedIn and other places where this is getting live streamed. But would love to hear from everyone where you're from in the world. And then also how many of you believe that having a personal purpose is important to your personal brand. And then lastly, and we might need some curation support here or facilitation support. If you have a personal ethos, would you care to share what that is with the group here? And maybe just to inspire, because I don't know if we have the functionality for me to actually pick up, quotes from the chat, but I hope that you can all see them. But maybe I'll share mine. So my personal ethos have always been to empower everyone around me to be able to achieve their personal missions. And I always encourage people to have a personal mission that's much bigger than themselves. And I see that there's some feedback in the chat that it's really important to have a personal brand. So great to see that people are weighing that as important. But yeah, that's my personal ethos. So just something, food for thought, like think about what is it that you want to get out of your presence and existence in this world beyond your professional journey. And now I'm going to dive into more of like the facts before I dive into framework. But some of the facts that are really important to understand are the economic factors around us. And there's a lot of them that are pointing towards not only companies having a purpose and having a strong commitment to our society and the environment, but also to us as individuals, right? Because it all starts with us. Some of the powerful stats that I want to share with you today is that 50% of countries, states, and cities, they've set targets now to achieve net zero by 2050. And that means every single government, every single country, city, municipality, community, individual, right, has to adhere to a number of different things to be able to preserve our planet. Another thing that's really important to take into account is that 49% of investors globally would divest from companies that are not taking sufficient action on ESG issues. And I think the same goes for influencers, right? If you're here today with us and your personal brand is your company, it's really, really important that you don't ignore these macroeconomic factors. The next one I want to share with you is that there's been 7 times growth on sustainability marketed products versus conventional products over the last 10 years. And then 67% sales increase for household products comprised of renewable resources. And last very powerful stat I want to share with you is that 1 in every $3 managed globally was invested with some form of ESG strategy, which means more than $35 trillion have been invested into purpose-driven business. And many of you might be sitting here thinking, what the heck is ESG? So ESG are 3 of the hottest letters right now in the corporate world, but it stands for environment, society, and governance, and definitely a framework as well that I encourage everyone to look up and understand, because every single company is going to have to adhere to an ESG standard in the future. Next up is actually a very, very personal framework to me. This was my very first exposure to sustainability and purpose-driven topics in business. And it was when the Millennium Goals that were launched in the year 2000 were relaunched in 2015 as the UN Global Goals, or some of you might know them as the SDGs, so the Sustainable Development Goals. And I try to bring these goals into everything that I do. It doesn't matter if it's personal or if it's professional. I always try to think about that as my guiding compass for, like, what are some of the macro challenges that the world is facing that I as an individual, or my team and my company, or my company as a whole, can take a stance for or commit to. So the UN Global Goals are really powerful. And I'm going to share just a little movie here, or film, that showcases what all these goals stand for. And I know that there are a couple of speakers before me that mentioned them in passing, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper. And I really want you to think about, when you see these goals getting drawn in front of you, what goal resonate with you? Which one is one where you feel like you could make an impact, or which one is one where you feel personally connected to that goal? Because that's going to determine as well how you adopt this framework into your personal brand strategy. And my personal ones are number 5, gender equality. That's been one that I've been working on ever since I saw these goals come out, 8 years ago now, at the UN in New York. I also am very passionate about responsible consumption and production, and as someone who is extremely passionate about wildlife and love to dive and snorkel, life below water is also a really, really important goal to me. So those are really personal goals, and there are many more. Number 10 is reducing inequalities overall, which is super tightly tied to gender equality, number 5. But take a look at all these goals and really think about, these goals, which one fits you, and how can you adopt these into your personal strategy? And then my last thing that I want to leave you with is that building a purpose-driven brand that cares is extremely important. I already shared some of the economic stats of why it matters. I have a little bit more, especially related to trust and to just the way that people engage with you and your brand. One of them is around that 42% of all US and UK consumers say that products that use sustainable materials are important in their day-to-day purchasing. 33% of consumers see brands as responsible for the environment, which is daunting. 60% of US consumers also find that authenticity is the most appealing quality of their favorite brands. And I think that reflects on us personally as well. And then 2 in 3 consumers think that brands that make public promises to be sustainable or to be impactful socially are more trustworthy. So that's really, really important in order to build a purpose-driven, personal brand that cares. Think about these things. You have to listen. You have to take a stand. You have to build trust. You have to be authentic, and you have to publicly pledge your commitments. I think it also makes you personally more accountable for, the commitments that you make to our planet, society, and the economy overall. So with that, I'm going to hand over. As Lisa mentioned, I don't think that there's time for Q&A today, but I really hope that you learned something and that you can take some of these frameworks into your personal brand strategy, or even into your company, and start activating purpose into your strategy. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Actually, it was really, really beneficial to see this. This is actually the first time I've seen you talk about your brand and your career journey in this way. So it was even insightful for me to hear the background and your thought process in building your personal brand. And would love to just hear just one key takeaway now that you've had a lot of big milestones behind the scenes personally, and as a female who's just like really doing so well in the tech sector, would love to get one point of advice on how you're able to build that brand with purpose and balance your life personal goals. Would love to hear that.
Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. And it's so good to see you, Christine. I wish I could give you a big hug through the screen here. We've been on similar journeys. You started with motherhood before and you have 4, which I don't know how you do that at all, with the ambitious business that you've built on the side. But the balance is so important, right? And I think when it comes to living your purpose personally and at work, it actually makes it easier. It would be weird if it was like a hat that you had to put on every time you went to work or you logged into work. You had to be unsustainable, and then after you go home, you then become sustainable again, right? I think they're intertwined. I think they're connected. You need to, in order to have that balance, right, and also in order to educate the next generation, which I do through my kids and through different charities and schools that I work with. But I think that's probably my answer. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that when you're living your truth both at work and personally, that becomes the balance, and that helps you live it.
Thank you. No, it did. And just the energy you brought answering it, that said it all. So congrats on everything. It's always a pleasure to see you, Sandra. Thank you so much for joining the Personal Brand Summit this year.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Bye, everyone.
Talk soon. All right. I saw a lot of reactions to her talk. I mean, definitely a really powerful presentation, living your purpose and personal branding strategy. I told all of you today you're going to get some powerful session topics. And without further ado, I love to introduce the last keynote of today, because today you heard about strategy. You heard about purpose, resilience, even just like, how to walk things from scratch. But in today's world, balance and really accelerating your brand in a way that not only builds a personal brand with purpose and power, but how do you actually manage your mental health in the process? The next speaker that's coming on is one that many of you know. He's not only the chair of the global startup ecosystem, he's an influencer, he's a thought leader in the exponential tech space, in the VC space, and he has built his career globally around the world, building entrepreneurs and influencers around the world. But how does he balance his personal brand along that journey? You're going to hear from our next speaker in the next 30 seconds. We're going to welcome Mr. Einstein and Tim. Get ready for the 30-second countdown. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please join a warm welcome to Einstein and Tim as he joins us on this amazing closing keynote, personal branding and mental health. Let's get the virtual round of applause. Einstein, over to you.
Super. Thank you so much for the introduction. That was a really great introduction. And for those who don't know, the reason why Christine and I share the same last name is because she's my wife. And that's such a great introduction. Thank you very much. And I wish you gave me that kind of introduction every day in the morning when I wake up. I'll feel even more fired up for the day. So thank you so much for that introduction. I hope you can all hear me quite clearly. Thank you to all our partners, our stakeholders for making this program happen. And also thank you to the people who've taken part in the program and those who will tune in later on as well. It's such an important topic. And I'll start my talk by saying that this topic of personal branding is incredibly important. And that's something that unfortunately many people don't really appreciate nor understand. And I'm one of those people that was a victim to that lack of understanding in the past. Entrepreneur, I built my.
As you guys get started with questions, yep, there we go. There we go. You're back on live and over.
Oh, sorry, I was still talking while I think the signal went away. But I was just saying, my name is Einstein Tim. I've had a very different foray of background when it comes to personal brands and career development, because my career has taken me across different journeys. So, for example, from going from a scenario where I was an investment banker to working in asset management to running my own business in the mental health space to working internationally, both in, for example, in India, in China, at different international corporate supranational brands like Tata Chemicals and Supcon Group and other organizations. I'm in the NGO space. So I've had a very, very eclectic career in different sectors, industries, different countries. And of course, I came back home to the UK and started a business in the mental health space and grew that organization and came to Silicon Valley to help raise capital for that organization. And that sort of birthed a whole new different journey from me within the startup space and the venture capital space. But right now I have different hats on, and the hat I have on is as a chair of Global Startup Ecosystem, where we are trying to train and develop people with the skill set for the future. We appreciate that people around the world, especially in emerging markets, need to learn about technology, innovation, about digital skill sets to be able to be better prepared for this future of advanced technologies. And that's why we've been championing this idea of training in advanced tech understanding for quite some time now. All right, so that's the first hat that I have on. The second hat I have on is also as an official at the Office of the President in Ghana. So I actually work now in the Diaspora Affairs Office of the President, where we try to help leverage and encourage diasporans to connect back to Ghana and help lead to the socioeconomic development of the country in general. But this is quite a lot of a mouthful right there. Well, I'll just simply dive straight into it, this talk, and say that building your personal brand is incredibly important. And for me personally, I have many regrets around that topic, because I started a mental health facility or mental health home in the UK, and that home did great, or still did great work when it came to rehabilitating people with mental health issues to become more uplifted and more sound in their living condition, and that way they can live what we classify as standard normal everyday lives. So people that have significant mental health issues like what's it called, clinical depression, bipolar disorders, all kinds of different foray of mental health issues that we help support people to build a skills, to build an ability to be able to deal with these mental challenges much more seamlessly and live independent, strong lives. And this business actually was impacting people's lives. It became profitable, it became fruitful, and was doing quite well. And at the time, I was one of the youngest people in the UK doing that. And until I didn't really understand the power of personal branding, so I actually spent quite a lot of time just focusing head on just the business and not building the things around that can help make it gaining more support. So I look at what the organization was able to achieve, which was quite good and quite significant. But I imagine now, if I understood the power of framing, narrative, better websites, better social media, better outreach, support, and better branding in general, the capacity of the organization would have done a lot more better. I could have impacted a lot more lives, raised a lot more support to be able to do so, because I did raise some investment capital to help scale that organization. But I know that with the right brand, with the right trust develop around, it could have gone a much longer distance to help support more people. So I always tell people that do not underestimate the power of having a personal brand and an organizational brand as well. Because sometimes you have people who, like myself at the time, believe that, look, just focus on the work, the social media stuff, the website stuff, the framing stuff is not that important. What matters is the operation of the organization. What matters is the management the database, how you handle, but forgetting that personal brand layer. I could have done a lot more to help me raise and rally support to help scale the work that the organization was doing. So I always say, first of all, it's important to recognize the importance and significance of a personal brand or an organizational brand. That's the first point I want to highlight. The second point I want to share with all of you is not to sleep on your hobbies, right? Now I'll bring this full circle at the end when I talk about mental health, right? We all have hobbies, and for those of you who are not sure what your hobbies are, spend time understanding what they are and developing that a bit more better, right? So your hobbies could be playing football, playing basketball, dancing, writing, reading, of course, even watching shows. The hobbies that you might have that you might not even be fully aware of. Like, for example, I didn't even realize it until my wife made me aware of that, was that I actually spend a lot of time watching reviews and critiques about films and TV shows. So we all have hobbies that we are aware of and those that we are not aware of. But for me personally, I write poetry as a way to decompress, and when I go for a walk and just recite things in my head, it just goes a long way to just calm me down, settle me, and just it's a great way to it's become a hobby to the point where I've written a poetry book called A New Way. It's actually on Amazon as well. And I always say do not sleep on your hobby, because a hobby can also add to your personal brand. So I've actually built some incredible relationships through this hobby of poetry, because I'd actually go to different parts of the UK and I'd perform at different places. When I was in China, I performed different places. Even when I went to Silicon Valley, one of the bits that kind of gravitated people to me was the poetry that I performed. So all I say is that with your hobby, you can actually, build new social circles, build new friendship groups, build new communities, build new just social groups in general. And that could be a good way that helps you gain more and new opportunities. So this hobby of poetry, which people became aware that it was something that was a part of me, it add a whole new layer to my brand, where when I go to events, activities, I can actually people ask, "Oh, can you mind sharing a few words for us?" And I would do so. And that helped me build a whole new set of relationships with people. Because at the end of the day, a big chunk of personal branding and just scaling in life in general is about your network and your relationship that you build with people, right? So poetry, as I say, really helped me significantly in building this type of relationship with different people around the world, right? And the third point I want to highlight is the personal brand does not have to be stagnant, right? For many of you, you will have different careers, you have different experiences and different just paths that life will take you on, right? So for me personally, there was a time when I was a professional athlete. I played rugby for the England youth division. I played rugby for the Harlequins at quite a high level. And from that, I actually got very heavily into fitness and health. So I actually became a personal trainer when I was at university, and even post-university too. So funny enough, even though I was an investment banker, I was working in asset management, a lot of people knew me more within the personal training and healthcare space. So I even wrote a few articles, a few features that actually were featured in local magazines in the UK and went quite far. So that was my brand for quite some time, where it was in personal training, fitness. And then, of course, after my career in banking and finance, when I started my business in the mental health space, I developed a whole new brand around mental health and care work. So that was very different. It grew from fitness, but it was still a different brand from personal training, right? So in the mental health space, I actually built a brand around that environment, speaking at conferences, at different programs, different events, actually even being featured in different ways. So that is a different brand from banking and finance, asset management, personal training, and that was in the mental health space. So when I started my business in the mental health space and it grew and gained more support, when I went to Silicon Valley, I actually had a brand around business development and actually scaling businesses. And my time in Silicon Valley and taking part in programs like Singularity University and Draper University taught me a lot about advanced technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, space, 3D printing, and the like. And I spent quite a lot of time, delving deep into those subjects like artificial intelligence. I did a nano degree on Udacity. With space, I started, a master's degree program at the International Space University in Strasbourg, France, and built a much more leadership around advanced technologies and how it affects the emerging markets. So within a span of a few years, I've had different types of personal brands that people know me for, where I've been requested to speak at different programs around the world. For example, speaking at the robotics conference in Estonia, speaking at a robotics conference in Colombia, and in the UK, of course, in the US, and different parts of the world, speaking about technology and how it affects the emerging markets, the emerging communities, and how people can scale their business in the technological realm. So I'm saying that to let you know that you can build personal brands in different arenas, but you can also grow your brand. So right now, if you are working in the IT sector and you want to build a brand in farming and agriculture, you just have to really just start begin to, of course, craft a narrative around that aspect and start delving deeper and building expertise in that space and putting your brand out there, right? So you can build these types of brands irrespective of different arenas you're in. So with that being said, I'll just I'll bring it full circle by saying that building your personal brand is very important, right? And if you do so, it can help open new doors, open channels for investment, open channels like media features, media spotlight, which can help your organization help what you're trying to achieve. And even if you're trying to impact spaces, even if you're trying to impact communities. And for those of you who are in the impact space or the NGO space, sometimes people have this concern or fear factor around building a brand. It's like, am I abusing this environment? Am I sort of am I using it for self-aggrandizement? Am I using it to just build my image and the like, right? But it's not that. The right way to think about it is that the brand can help you gain more support to help you achieve the objectives of the objectives of the initiative you're trying to accomplish. So if you are trying to, for example, raise money to help tackle disaster relief within certain communities that have suffered like storms or like floodings, right? If you have a stronger brand within that space, you can rally more support to help impact the lives of those people there. So that's the right way to see. So for example, I had that mentality when I was working in the mental health space, because I was like caring for people who are vulnerable, who had significant issues. And I was like, how can you build a brand around that when it would make you, it might seem that you're just like an opportunity or wherever it is. And I didn't do that. But I do regret it, because if I built a brand and a respectful brand around that space much sooner, I could have rallied more support and changed more people's lives, whether it's support with people who would want to come and work with you, talented people who would want to spend more time with the organization. So support is not just about money and financial raising, but also about the talented people who want to work with you and work around you, right? So support with capital, with talent, and with just overall resources that can help drive the mission much further on. So with all that being said, there is I built a brand within the mental health space, and I'd always share with people in that, when I talk to people on whether it's virtual or in person, that because I've worked so much within the mental health space, I do understand how important it is to make that a priority area for you. So for example, for those of you who have not done much to help, develop their mental health and their mental fortitude, please spend some time doing so, right? We're all human beings, and we all people, we all humans, we all have challenges and issues. And sometimes there are people who are just, living their lives, and people will never notice something going on and until something extreme happens, right? So for those on the call, please do start working to highlight how important mental health is for you as an individual. Really, first of all, get a hobby if you already don't have one or are not aware of it. Craft a bit more better within your hobby. Make some time and space for your mental health care, whether it's time for walks, time for working out, things that you enjoy sincerely. Really spend some time to craft that a bit better, right? So I just want to it's quite a lot of information. I actually thought I was going to speak only for a few minutes. But first of all, brand is very important. Do not sleep on your hobbies because it can be an arena to craft and build a personal brand as well. And you can build different personal brands throughout your career and have them going on simultaneously, or just have one be the significant feature for the brand for yourself, right? And finally, please take care of your mental health, right? In Ghana here, I'm actually in the president's office. If you can see the space, I'm in a very, very beautiful space here. And I get people here in the culture here sometimes can be that, oh, look, oh, depression, this, it doesn't really matter. Like, no, you're just being weak, whereas, but no, spend some time to look after yourself, look after your mental health space. Do what you need to do, whether it's taking some time to decompress, walk. If you need some time off from your responsibilities, do so, and just recognize that as an important area to focus upon. Right. With that being said, you can reach me on LinkedIn, Einstein and Tim on LinkedIn, and my email is einstein@globalstartupecosystem.com. Do connect. I'm happy to share more information, and stay tuned and just tune into our GSE program, and we have a bunch of programs coming up for the next few months and the next few weeks. So please tune in and build your personal brand, and let's make. I want to see more people having stronger brands. Actually, I think everyone should have their own personal brand in general. And take care of your mental health, please. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Einstein. It was a real pleasure listening to you. Do you have time for a few questions?
Yeah, I do. And please ask away.
Okay.
I'm more than happy to share insight.
All right. So someone from the chat is asking about if you could throw more light about how to build a personal brand despite you going through mental stuff or going through a troubling time. How do you maintain a good public image when you are going through depression?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks for asking that question. I would say when it comes to one thing we want to avoid is not projecting. There's a difference between projecting strength, because obviously, like if you're a parent and you're going through a very difficult time, and you're even going through depression, I personally don't think it's good to if you have minor children to put that weight upon them, right? So there's projection strength in order to help things move forward, and then there's I know we're in a culture of entrepreneurs where they say fake it till you make it. And I do agree you have to fake it till you make it, but you don't have to fake it completely when it comes to even your mental disposition, especially on social media, because you have people out there and you watch videos all the time on YouTube where people are projecting one thing on social media and their real life is something else altogether. And that can create its own chasm and issues when it comes to people's mental health spaces. So when it comes to depression and challenges of the most important thing is to inform people around you, your close circle, of what you're going through. It's it's just letting them know, look, I'm going through a difficult time, so I'm not going to be of myself for some time. That helps a lot. So you don't have to project it to let's say your wife or your brother, your sister, or maybe depending on who are your close inner circles. That's the first part. And people who are invested in taking care of you. All right. So informing the close people around you, it's kind of like if you are in a meeting and someone's trying to call your phone, right? You don't have to pick up the phone call in the meeting and let them know and speaking loudly while that meeting is taking place. You can pick up the phone and let them look, I'm in a meeting right now. I'll be off in about 2 hours, and I'll call you back. Or I'll call you tomorrow. That's a strong way to go about it. All right. Now the first part. The second part, going back to again, when it comes to mental health and challenges like depression, it's you have to find a formal way of expressing yourself sincerely, right? And that can come in different ways for different people, whether it's doing things you enjoy, like going for walks, taking some time out. If it's things, as I said, a hobby is very important. That's when you have to delve down deeper into a hobby or things that you find enjoyable, which is whether it's shows, reviews of shows, walks, taking part in activities, whether it's helping other people. Sometimes people really can form expression from helping other people in a sincere manner, right? So I would say, first of all, let people in your inner circle recognize what you're going through. Secondly, find forms of expression and ways of decompression, which is going for walks, exercising, reading, just some time out for yourself, more importantly, right? And then the final one is also like breaking down the source of where this depression is coming from. We're all human beings. There's people who have the predisposition for depression anyway. So decoding where it's coming from, and that just comes have some quiet time. Like, am I having like a crisis of my career? Am I going through like financial challenges that is that causing me? If some of these people are unemployed, for example, it can be a real source of like, or it's maybe it's death in the family or trauma that took place that's surfacing, right? Finding the source, so that because the source will help you identify if you need to gain secure professional help to help you overcome it, or you can find ways to do so in your own personal lives in that way, right? But you don't have to project something on social media that you don't have to, right? So most important. So to wrap it up, if you're a professional and you're an expert and you're building a brand and you want to make sure that even if you're going for mental health hardships, it's all about the little things you can do to help things going forward. So if it's a short article, a short post, things that you can do, and breaking things down to pick one key medium to do so. So right now in the world that we live in, there's Facebook, LinkedIn, this and that. Maybe pick one medium to go about doing so. All right. Thank you.
No, it's powerful because more people are still asking more questions. And before you go off, because I know today was a very crazy day for you and you've been doing so well. One thing that Einstein, that you started off your keynote about was really around the fact that you didn't really take personal branding seriously. Even though you accomplished so much in your career, it's almost like you didn't need to because you already have a reputation. What's one advice, I guess, you would give to people that don't understand the importance of personal branding, even if they have everything going well for them? It'd be great if we could get that feedback because you have done it. You still continue to just shock people with what you do every day.
Yeah, can you repeat the last part of the question again? Like,
So like, how would you convince someone that building a personal brand is actually like, yeah, you should do it?
Yeah, I would say I didn't focus on personal branding, not because I thought I was accomplished or because I didn't need to. It's just because, again, how you got to look at your background and what even like how you're raised and stuff. So I spent time to decode it, right? So the part of it is because I was working in a space where I'm dealing with vulnerable adults and vulnerable people, right? And sometimes you don't want to feel like you're being an opportunist, right? So imagine somebody who is going to work with in the slums of like Chhatrapati in India, for example, which I did, right? And you're like, oh, if I take a photo of myself and I put it out there, is it going to look like I'm just trying to exploit it for my own, right? So that's one part. The other part is also so that's for impact space, in my opinion, right? The other part is when you're building a business, sometimes I grew up in that whole hardcore economic background, like investment banking, finance, business development, right? And you have the thinking that, look, that stuff is important, but I got to focus on the real part of the business. So I think it's a cultural, I mean, in the UK, we complain about, Americans can be a little bit boisterous and a little bit more, but it's working. So we are like, we're doing the real, it's like being in a team, right? And then you in a team, in a business, and let's say, or in a project plan, and you're the one that's doing the typing, the one that's like doing the task at hand, and you have the person that's like presenting, and like, all they're doing is just talking, right? So if you look at your personality type and you see, oh, look, I think the typing bit, the database bit, the structure, that's what's important. The talking bit, there's just people being fluffy, all right? So it's just an understanding of like how each area has an important role to play, and whether you like it or not, in the world that we live in, that branding, marketing, media component has taken a much more bigger position in our society than other areas, right? So it's become just as important as other areas of the business, to the point where we have organizations that only build on personal brand and do nothing else, and are scaling past business that actually doing real organizational stuff. So you can be that business small, and SMEs complain about it all the time. And we tell SMEs, look, you can be that SME that's complaining about, oh, we do this, we do that. Oh, but these people they don't do it. And then, but they are gaining the support, right? So why don't you, if you're doing the real work, why don't you work to kind of gain the support to help you scale the work you're doing and make a real bigger impact? So it's a case of just like, wherever you're doing, if you improve your personal brand, whether it's for you personally or your organization, it can help you gain more support to scale the impact you're trying to make. And in the world that we live in, we're so
I think you froze a bit. I think you froze a bit. Einstein just giving a response to the last question. I think he's gonna come back on in a second, but no, it's guys, this is a conversation we've had so many times privately, and I'm just so I'm taken aback by his ability to like share this insight with all of you. Einstein, you back on? Because it's some
yeah,
powerful
sorry.
stuff now. No, you're good.
At the office here, they kind of block the signal on different bus for security reasons, and just it's another conversation. All right. But yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, I hope I answered the question. I know it's there's a lot to talk about on this topic here.
You did, but no, thank you so much as always. And I think like you kind of not only gave the real side of personal branding, but the mental health component is important, the balancing. And you've helped me along my career journey to help me find that balance. And I'm excited that many people on today's session got to hear from you that perspective. So thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for virtually, right? Einstein and Tim, thank you so much
Thank you for
coming on.
having me. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.
Wow. And again, like the reason why I wanted to like still follow up with that question with Einstein is because, to be honest with you, I don't think people are having the depthness of the conversations that I even have had personally with Einstein offline. And it's really important that in today's day and age, we now know that personal branding is important. We now know it's imperative and instrumental to career development, career success, and life, right? But balancing that with your mental health, it just comes without saying. And so with that said, as we now transition, right, to closing the Personal Brand Summit, I really envision that this summit is going to be the go-to program every single year that you could tap into to not only learn how to build your brand, learn how to manage your brand, scale and monetize, but tap into the stories, the strategies, and perspectives of people who are leveraging the digital space to, as Einstein shared before, scale their impact, accelerate their growth, but also really resonate with their audiences. We are living a completely different time. And these phenomenal speakers today, each and every one of them, the keynotes, the workshops, the panels that you interacted with today for this iconic inaugural edition of the annual Personal Brand Summit, they all came together to share with you one major message: build your personal brands, protect it, and leverage the power of your personal brand in this digital space. The key takeaway for today. So I hope that you learned well and that you will come back next year, hopefully with phenomenal updates on how you leverage today's content to accelerate your brand. And of course, you could connect with me in many different ways by following up with me via christineandtim.com. Many of you have expressed interest in joining the Personal Branding Accelerator program. You're welcome to join. But with that, I look forward to seeing you at the next year's edition of Personal Brand Summit. Let's stay in touch. Thank you so much. Good luck. All the best with all of you building that personal brand, because like I said before, this is how you're going to define yourself. Knowing the strategy is one thing, but having that purpose behind the brand is another. Go for it. Show up in the world the best form of you. And I promise you, The world is waiting for it. So go ahead. See you soon. Thank you so much, and congratulations for joining us on the Personal Brand Summit. Goodbye.
Now, in order to be able to know how to craft your personal brand, you need to know your level. Where are you today to even know how to get to building a personal brand? So if I were to ask any one of you today, how many of you believe you already have a personal brand? Usually, on average, when I ask this question, I get divided responses, where some of you say, yes, I do have a personal brand, and some of you say, no, I actually don't have one. Well, I'm here to give you the actual answer. The answer is all of you have a personal brand, whether you think you do or not.